To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping keep your Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
All right, thank you. And I apologize. I just wanted to make sure I got the sequencing right here for when Commissioner Fish is going to join us. He'll join us for items that we're going to add 2 items right after communications. So first up, Carla, is communications. Could you please invite the first individual, please?
Item 658, request of Francisco Holdman to address council regarding homeless, houseless issues and solutions.
Good morning. The microphone slides around. When you have about 30 seconds left, you'll see the yellow light light up. When your time is done, it's the red light.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Francisco Holdman. I'm an employee of the Multnomah County Library. While researching the right to return for a patron, I discovered that what the Oregonian called zombie houses, and I was interested in purchasing these zombie houses for the amount that is owed and converting them to low-income Section 8 housing. Also, as I was researching this, I found that there's surplus properties from the Water Bureau, and I would also like to develop these properties into low-income housing and veteran housing, or disabled veteran housing. I found that the easiest way to approach the city council would be to come here and speak, because like just to approach you individually, there's a long wait to get scheduled unless you're an organization, and I don't currently have an organization, but I would form an organization if this was feasible. I know it's just a drop in the bucket. It's not a lot of housing, but as anyone has known, drops in a bucket can eventually fill the bucket. It's a complicated issue, solving homelessness, but this could be one of the processes to reduce homelessness in Portland. So if that's even something that the city can do, I know if you want to sell it to developers for a profit, but developers are going to develop the properties for the highest amount of profit, and that's not going to be to serve low-income people. So that's basically it. If you think that that's something we can work on, I would just like to be able to meet with you in person and develop a plan to make this happen. That's it.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you very much. I worked on the zombie houses with Commissioner Saltzman and Mayor Hales, and it turns out it's a lot more complicated due to state laws about what the process has to be to make sure that property owners are not unfairly having their property taken. And then it has to go through like a year's wait, and there has to be a process for offering it on the open market.
Yes, we saw that, and we don't want to take any properties away from people that want to maintain their properties and try to keep them. We're just, if the original owners are not going to pay for them, then we'd like an opportunity to use that housing to develop for low income.
We have actually, for the first time in decades, gone through that process, and it turns out that once the foreclosure process seems to be in earnest, many of the owners do show up and start making the changes to their property, so it hasn't resulted in as many actual turning over the property into more productive uses. And regarding the surplus Water Bureau properties and the Environmental Services, Commissioner Fish is out today, but he would tell you that he established a process for declaring those properties surplus when they are. And again, it has to go through a full process of, unfortunately, it does have to go to the highest bidder because of the rates having purchased the property. They have to get as much return on those properties, but they can't dedicate them to affordable housing.
Well, I understand that, but I also understand that, I mean, we're trying to solve a problem. And if, you know, going to the highest bidder just makes the problem worse, which it will because they're not going to make low-income housing. So,
I know Commissioner Fish shares your frustration because he has been working on the affordable housing crisis for a very long time, and so I'm sure he'll continue looking into that, and I appreciate your coming to talk to us about it.
okay.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your initiative, and if you'd like a further follow-up question on these issues to get a little more detail, since you took the initiative, I think it's the least we can do. I don't know who is actually, I guess Jennifer is staffing these. Wave your hand again, Jennifer, so he can see you. We'll connect you with the appropriate person in our office who deals with these housing-related issues.
Okay.
And you can dive as deeply as you want to.
All right.
But I think your ideas are good and they're sound, and I agree with Commissioner Fritz. There are unfortunately formidable obstacles in both of those cases, but
Right.
we should at least have the conversation, and what the heck, maybe new ideas will be spurred.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming in, we appreciate it. Next individual, please, Carla.
Item 659, request of Craig Rogers to address council regarding trust and local government. He will not be coming today.
Next individual, please.
Item 660, request of John Petty to address council regarding Airbnb issues. He is also not coming.
I'm feeling like a little jilted today. Next individual, please.
661, request of Dana Lynn Lewis to address council regarding Gather, Make, Shelter, a citywide collaboration with the population experiencing homelessness.
Very good. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
She said my name. It's Dana Lynn Lewis. I want to, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you bet.
Just want to play this video because it says a lot about the project. I started this project in October. I'm Dana Lynn Lewis, and I'm an artist and have been in Portland for the last 30 years. Gather Make Shelter came about because I feel like I've been feeling this real disconnect between people walking down the street, not looking at each other, not talking to each other. And I wanted to create an art project where people are encouraged to meet each other at their base level of humanity on a more regular basis. Recently, I've been engaged in a project in Senegal, and there I taught some women who are potters how to draw and how to paint, and it turned into a new income stream for them. When I came back to Portland, I thought, how could I make something happen here? I'm working with 10 different social service agencies at this point. There's potters all over Portland that are making pots. People are really excited about contributing to this project. Then what I'm going to do is take those ceramic bowls into 10 different social service agencies and teach some drawing and painting skill workshops relative to working on pottery with people who are experiencing homelessness. Those artists who are working through the social service agencies, they're going to be paid to do this project, and that's a really important piece of this project for me. So in the end, after we do all these wonderful workshops and everyone's made all these incredible bowls, we're going to have festivals in the fall. You'll come and you'll bring all your friends and you'll buy a bowl. And the end point of that festival is all those bowls that are going to be sold and everybody that's come together to produce them. They're going to be creating this big fundraiser because we're going to sell those bowls, and all that money is going to be turned right over to get people into housing. I have been so honored and inspired that so many people are interested and engaged and think that this matters, and that the actions that we take through Gather, Make, Shelter are going to make a difference. I don't want to squander my 3 minutes, so I'll just tell you a few more things. The final events are actually taking shape right now, and I was invited, or Gather Make Shelter was invited to have our final event at Pioneer Courthouse Square, which is very exciting. Another event that we're going to, and that's going to be the big public event where we sell the bowls and everybody comes. There's also going to be food there, and it's a cross-pollination of chefs in town working with youth experiencing homelessness to teach them some culinary skills. There's music that's coming on board. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. In addition to that, I'm teaching 60 workshops between May and September. I personally am teaching those workshops. 10 social service agencies, that was the count in April when we made this video. Now it's probably 12, and then there's a couple others, Right to Survive and Right to Dream, and a couple other individual groups that have called me. I get calls every day about people wanting to jump on board. At this point, the project is completely funded by the citizens. I need money, and I would love for you guys to spread the word, dig deep in some pockets if there are any, inform everybody you know. GatherMakeShelter.org is the place where you can access our fundraising campaign, and GatherMakeShelter@gmail.com is where you can arrange a meeting with me, and I'm happy to meet with everybody and their mother and father and sister and brother to talk about this project. Not only are the housed citizens funding this project, the people who are currently experiencing homelessness have given me money for this project. And people are shocked when I offer them a stipend to participate in this. And the elevation of people's morale around thinking that what they're doing makes a difference is growing daily. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Could I ask you a question? You mentioned the big event at Pioneer Square. Do you have a date?
Yes, September 23rd.
September 23rd, what time?
We don't have a time on that, but there's going to be a lot of publicity around that. There's also going to be an artist-only party because I want the painters and the potters are really interested in each other. I bring in photo albums with me every day when I teach to show this person made this pot, this person signed this pot, you're collaborating with this person, and as much as I can, I text the potter and say, look what happened today.
Okay,
and it's
good.
pretty great. But there's an artist party. The artist party is going to be artists only, and there's rumor that it's going to be very close to this room, but we're not sure yet.
Awesome. And just to, if I want to know more, I go to GatherMakeShelter.org. Is
Yes,
that correct?
please. Yeah.
Very
And
good.
GatherMakeShelter@gmail.com gets you access to asking any questions. And also I want to say another thing is that I'm having these open studios once a month, and that ranges from anybody who wants to come, who's participated in the project or curious about the project. The next one's tomorrow night. So if you're interested in that, my studio's not far from here, and it's from 6 to 7:30, GatherMakeShelter@gmail. You can get all the information.
Commissioner Fritz, then Commissioner
Thank you
Daly.
for your leadership. We have a special appropriations process where people can apply for small grants for projects just like this if they get going, starting in the summer. So you could look out for that because that's the place where if we do have any spare cash, that's you can apply for it.
Okay, so I've been in touch with Commissioner Udaley's office and also Commissioner Fish's office, and actually I've been at your office too.
Great.
So who do I follow up with on that? Same people that I'm in touch with?
Yeah, you could get in touch with the mayor's office because his staff in the Office of Management and Finance will be starting
great.
that process.
Okay, great. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Commissioner Daly.
I just wanted to point out, in case people missed it, that Dana is the artist who created the installation in the north atrium at City Hall.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you
for your
so much.
time. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm on my way to the Southeast Industrial Business Association. I'm speaking with Mark Jolin and people from Central City Concern about the positive things that are happening in the city relative to people who are working with people experiencing homelessness to make it better.
So I just spent 2 hours with them at a different event
Oh, did
talking
you?
about progress around homeless services. So
Right.
It is a small town, isn't it? Say hi
Yeah.
to them for me. They're probably sick of me already.
Yeah, well, it's really great, and I'm really honored to be part of that too. So.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in and
Thank
sharing
you.
this with
Yeah.
us. It's really exciting.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Have any items, I believe I pulled one item off of the consent agenda, 671. Are there other items that have been pulled, Carla?
I've had no other requests.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. Consent agenda is adopted. And now we are going to invite Commissioner Fish in, and so I believe I have the appropriate script that I need to read. Pursuant to PCC 3.02.025, Commissioner Fish is participating by telephone because he is traveling. Failure to allow participation of the absent city council member by electronic communication would jeopardize the public interest, health, safety, or welfare. All other city council members are physically present in the chamber. Do any of the council members who are physically present object to having Commissioner Fish participate by telephone? And although it's not part of the script, colleagues, I believe he is just participating for items 679 and 680. And I'm getting a head nod on that. Seeing no objection, let's go ahead and ring him in.
Commissioner Fish, are you there?
Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome.
70, 679. So my understanding is we're going to do 679. Is that correct?
And
Next.
680.
And 680. Very good. If you could read those two together, please.
679, add a new per-night fee assessed on booking agents or transit lodging intermediaries for the privilege of facilitating a short-term rental occupancy. And 680, amend Tourism Improvement District Code to include short-term rental hosts who use booking agents to advertise or accept reservations and other housekeeping changes.
Colleagues, we had extensive testimony and presentations on this last week. These are both second readings. Is there anything else that people would like to raise prior to the vote? Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. We had a discussion about whether to change to a percentage rather than a flat fee. So it would be a percentage fee rather than a flat fee. And so I did some research, and in Portland you can rent a room for $15 per night. You can also rent an entire apartment for $1,200 per night. And either way, under what we have on the table, the proposed fee would be $4. The percentage fee on the $15 room is 27%. The percentage fee on the $1,200 apartment is 0.3%. If we went to a 3.25% fee, which is estimated to raise a similar amount of money for the Housing Investment Fund, the fee on the $15 room would be less than 50 cents, whereas the fee on the apartment would be $39. It seems to me to be basic fairness to avoid regressive impacts on people as much as possible. And the person renting the $15 room is going to be much more impacted by a $4 charge than the person paying $1,200 for a night. And I believe we should take the time to get it right. At the very first public hearing I ever went to at Metro on the 1995 Green Spaces bond measure, 6 local citizens from Southwest Portland made the point that they had missed the whole of Southwest Portland and Lake Oswego in crafting their bond measure. And the person who had been in charge of the committee said, well, we've been doing this for 2 years and this is the last hearing and you're too late. And Judy Wires, who was the Metro presiding officer at the time, said, there's no point in having a public hearing if it doesn't matter what the public says when they show up. These people are my constituents, they've made a point, and what are we going to do about it? And she would not let them continue before they had that discussion. And I believe this is really important. We had a tremendous public hearing in which we did hear from both the platform companies and the hosts that they're open to participating in the system. They have some suggestions on how to make it better. And I believe it would be worth taking the time to make it better.
Very good. Item 679. Is there any further discussion?
Well,
Commissioner Udaley.
I'm confused. Did you just propose an amendment, or?
I thought we should have some
Yeah.
discussion since we had a public hearing. People asked for this, and we said maybe there would be an amendment. I thought we should have some discussion.
So Commissioner Fritz and I have come to similar conclusions independently. I also would prefer a percentage. It's my understanding that and I'm a little confused why we would be moving forward with a vote without talking about this. It was my understanding that we were going to look a little more closely at this because we've had a request to delay implementation from one or more of the platforms until the end of the summer. So is that not the case? Okay, well,
So I'll speak up since I don't see staff here for either of these items. It is my understanding that the implementation will not actually take place until October 1st. This is an interesting conversation, but I was persuaded by Commissioner Fish's amendment, which allows us to go into a data collection and dissemination mode. Therefore, we have the ability to evaluate the policy. There are pros and cons and trade-offs to flat fee versus a percentage fee. My personal preference would be not to delay this further.
Actually, Mayor, the effective date is August 1st.
August 1st, thank you for correcting me.
But there's been a request to delay it until after Labor Day. So, I mean, what I'm suggesting is if we are going to delay it for 2 months, that we look into the question of percentage versus flat fee.
Mayor, can I be heard for a second?
Commissioner Fish, sure.
I can barely hear you. I'm in the former Soviet Union watching football. Here's one option that we could pursue. The second item today, I think we have consensus and we're ready to move on. I believe there are both practical revenue and legal issues relating to whether you do a flat fee or a percentage. I would actually love to be present for that debate, or at least the discussions with my colleagues before the next debate. Would the mayor consider a brief set-over of the first matter so that we can just see if we can reach consensus? I share his view that based on what I've been briefed and learned, I think the flat fee is the better way to go. But if there is if the implementation is not until August or later, I would see no harm in a very brief set-over so we could have those conversations, which I'd like to be present for, and then we could just take a vote on the second item.
I would also like to be present for and included in the conversation. My understanding is anything we try to implement above $2 puts us at risk for one or more of the platforms to pull out. And I'm not convinced that a flat fee is more desirable or a safer bet than a percentage. And I was compelled by the testimony given last week, especially from the smaller hosts offering lower end rooms. So
if I could also just add, Mayor, there's a set of legal issues as well about what is the most defensible. I don't want to have that conversation by telephone. But if it seems to me, if two colleagues feel strongly about this, Mayor, a brief set-over of this item so we can catch a vote on the second and see if we can reach consensus is in order.
Does that work for you?
Sure. Very nice.
So I am certainly happy to do that. I want to be crystal clear. I'm ready to move forward. I think it is a mistake tactically to delay this any further, but I'm hearing my colleagues, and I want to honor the wishes of a majority of my colleagues. Therefore, item 679, we will set it over. The next opportunity where we actually have a full quorum would be July 19th. Carla, if you want to pencil that in as a time.
I'm not here on July 19th.
Yeah, Commissioner, she's gone. 19th's a Thursday?
Yes,
Right, yeah,
but
Commissioner
I'm
Fritz,
hearing
I
Commissioner
showed you
Fritz
that.
is not available for that.
You're not, okay.
Can we do a time certain, Mayor?
Yeah, we're looking into that, Commissioner Fish.
On the
One moment,
19th of
stand by.
July
Thought so.
would be 3 p.m. Thursday, July 19th, 3 p.m.
Does that work for everybody?
Hang on a second.
Because Commissioner Fritz is out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Oh, no.
I was trying to, I thought that's
Okay, no, so when is
We
the
don't-
next date when we are all available?
August 22nd.
And we could do this as an emergency. Because I concur with the mayor, it is important to do this. I just think it is important.
Can we
to do
find
it
a
right.
date in July and have a colleague who's not here phone in, or are you going to be in England?
I'm going to be in England, sir. Although I could phone in. My mum has voice over internet. She just doesn't have the internet, though. So it would be challenging to actually watch the...
If there's any way we could keep a July date, I would just urge us to do that.
On the 25th, Commissioner Fish, you're out. You're the only one out if you want to call in on the 25th.
I will make myself available on the 25th.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish, both for being willing to delay it and also for being willing to have that flexibility. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Fish, do you prefer a morning or an afternoon for?
If we could do it time certain in the morning, Carla?
Okay, it would be 10:45, July 20th.
And by the way, Carla has assured me that the photograph superimposed over my seat is my high school graduation picture. Can people confirm that for me?
I'm not seeing anything, Commissioner.
Actually, that's probably even better.
All right, so colleagues, let's do this because we could spend the whole council session comparing councils. Let's hold this over. We'll sort it out with staff. So our staffs will work on this. We'll hold over 679. We'll leave the item open. 680, please call the roll.
Fish.
I'm very pleased that we're moving forward with what I'd hope with both items, but I think a brief delay is in order in the first item. And I want to thank the mayor for the leadership that he's shown on both items. I think we're heading in the right direction. I vote aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
So this is to add the 2% tourism improvement district to the short-term rentals, and I was not fully understanding how that fee is used until I was reminded that it's to publicize Portland as a whole as a destination. It doesn't say stay at particular Hotel X or even list the hotel options. It basically just says Portland's a great place, come and visit us. And so it does benefit the short-term rentals as well as the hotels, and I appreciate that they're willing to accept this. Aye.
Wheeler.
I'm ready to go. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner Fish. Next item, 662 and 663. Could you read those together, please?
662 and 663, adopt the supplemental budget for the fiscal year 2017-18 over expenditure process and make budget adjustments in various funds. And 663, authorize temporary operating loans between various funds to provide interim funding to cover lags in federal, state, and other grant reimbursements and other negative cash and fund balances.
All right, very good. We have our budget team here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
And we have a couple of amendments, I understand, as well. Yes. I'm going to introduce several, and then Commissioner Fritz has at least one amendment.
I'm Claudio Camposano, Interim City Budget Director. I'm joined by Jessica Eden, our Budget Monitoring Process Coordinator. Today I'm presenting two items, a supplemental budget ordinance and a loan resolution. I'll start with the supplemental budget, or the over-expenditure ordinance as it's known. The over-expenditure ordinance is the third of three scheduled mid-year adjustments to the city budget. The focus of this action is largely constrained to addressing areas where actual expenses have a reasonable likelihood of exceeding current appropriations. I'll briefly highlight some of the changes and take any questions. Then I believe there are several amendments, as the mayor mentioned, that may be moved. In the general fund, there are several items of note. Two items to ensure that the city remains compliant with state budget law, not overexpending current appropriation levels. So the first is an increase of $1 million in discretionary appropriation to Portland Parks and Recreation to address projected undercollection of fee revenues. The Bureau is largely discretionary funded, but has a considerable fee revenue budget as well, and that's primarily from recreation fees. So to the degree that these revenues do not materialize, discretionary general fund fills the gap. So this action addresses that possibility. This year, we've been seeing a little weakness in the revenues, and while they were projected reasonably, we're seeing a little undercollection. So Bureau leadership has been working to address that shortfall, and there's a reasonable likelihood that the additional funds will not be needed, but we just want to make sure that we don't overexpend. Are there any questions on that one? No? Okay.
So,
yeah. Commissioner
who
Saltzman.
controls that decision about whether those funds need to be spent or not?
Well, they'll be spent if the Bureau actually has expenses that exceed their. So they've got a discretionary budget. If the expenses are in excess of the discretionary budget, which they will be, but then you've got the non-discretionary portion that fills that gap. If the non-discretionary does not come in, we'll just need to we'll need to have other revenues to back the expenses that happen. So at this late point in the year, we've got very little opportunity to turn it around. So it's going to land where it's going to land at this point. But I know
For the fiscal year that's
for the current fiscal year, 17-18. So really, I know that the Bureau leadership has identified this issue several months ago and has been working to address it, and we've been working closely with them to identify the reasons for it and also to address the situation.
Commissioner Fritz.
Commissioner, you may remember that we did the same thing about 3 years ago, and then in the full bump, the report comes back to council, and in that case, we were able to not need any of the $1 million at that point too. Okay. So I'm hopeful that that's the case.
And it's also important to note that that to the degree that any of the resources are needed, bureaus would be responsible. Bureaus that overspend would be responsible for a one-time reduction to basically make the general fund whole. So it's a net zero across years.
Okay, thank you.
So next is an increase of $25,000 in the city budget office to address to address unanticipated costs associated with the vacation leave payout for our outgoing director. Once again, the expectation is that this additional appropriation will not be necessary based on our current projections. It's really just a conservative measure to ensure that we don't overspend. So in both cases, as I said, the bureaus would be responsible for one-time reductions next year if they actually do need to use those funds. It should be noted that unrestricted contingency stands at roughly $353,000, so it's not sufficient to cover these items, but we do have $15.9 million overall in contingency, and that's including several policy set-asides. And so those set-asides are already funded again in the next year, and so any repayment from any cuts that would be necessary would refund those set-asides in the following year. So in addition to the general fund, we've got two reductions that have been included. In addition to the general fund, we've got two reductions that have been included for carryover into 18-19. We've got Commissioner Udaley's office has carried over $15,000 to fund neighborhood coalition budgets in ONI, the Office of Community and Civic Life. And the discretionary portion of this has already been included in the 18-19 budget. The Office of Management and Finance is reducing $288,307 to carry over funding to 18-19 to fund an executive recruitment strategy to fill a number of director-level vacancies, and I believe Council is aware of that. So outside of the general fund, there are a number of actions described in Exhibit 2 to the ordinance. Most notable is a shift of $15.1 million from the Development Services Fund contingency to fund the interfund loan to the Portland Housing Bureau. It's an interim financing mechanism for affordable housing projects, and that's really the only major one. But if anybody has any questions about other items in the exhibit, I'd be happy to answer. Okay. So we've received a couple of amendments. So if folks want to move those.
Yes, so I've got three colleagues that I'd like to introduce. Number one, I'd like to move the following language adjustment in the Bureau of Revenue and Financial Services. This is Fund Number 223 of $175,000 to ensure the Arts, Education, and Access Fund is not overexpended in the external materials and services major object category. Funding is provided via transfer of existing appropriation from contingency to external materials and services. This updates Exhibits 1 to 4 as needed to reflect this change. Do I have a second?
Second.
This one is equally exciting sounding. Amendment number 2. Reduce, Commissioner Saltzman.
Well, go ahead and introduce him, then I'll ask a question or two.
Thank you. And staff will be more than thrilled to answer all of your questions.
About this.
So number 2, reduce external materials and services in the mayor's office general fund appropriation by $23,000 and set aside the resources and program carryover contingency to be reallocated during the fall supplemental budget process. The $23,000 will be used to pay for 2 vacation payouts that are due in 2018-19. This would update Exhibits 1 to 4 as needed to reflect this change. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Number 3, increase Bureau expenses and revenues in the Bureau of Human Resources for Kaiser payments in PPA Health Fund 707 by $120,000. This updates Exhibits 1 to 4 as needed to reflect this change. Could I also get a second for this, please?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Saltzman. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Saltzman had some questions.
On your First Amendment, Mayor, so the arts tax has a revenue, has a fund set up. I guess it's Fund 223, if I'm reading the amendment correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
And are we taking, by this action, taking general fund money?
No, this
To
really aligns the tax collections, and because the external materials and services is the disbursement to the entities that receive the tax. So to the degree the taxes are higher than anticipated, the expenses are also higher than anticipated. So we need to increase that expense to account for the larger collection.
But it's still arts
Yes, it's
fund
it's
money
still
that's
arts tax
paying.
funded. It's
Okay.
all within the same fund. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any further questions on these amendments, colleagues? Commissioner Fritz, you have an amendment.
I do. I move to make the following adjustment to the supplemental budget as proposed. Increase Bureau expenses in personnel services by $75,000, internal materials and services by $60,000, and external materials and services by $65,000 in the Portland Parks and Recreation's Portland International Raceway Fund to ensure that these categories are not overexpended by year end. Funding is provided via a decrease in appropriation of fund contingency and updates Exhibit 1 through 4 as needed to reflect this change.
Second.
Thank you. And so basically, this is just moving money around within the Portland International Raceway. Some of these expenditures are related to the IndyCars coming Labor Day weekend, but it doesn't require any general fund investment in that fund. It's just making sure we do everything.
That's correct. I believe it's an accelerated expense. It was anticipated in the next fiscal year, but since it was done this year, but the revenue associated with the IndyCar event will be coming next year. So.
And I certainly appreciate the City Budget Office paying attention to all these different funds and to assure the taxpayers that we are looking after your money very carefully.
Great.
Very good. Colleagues, I have one more. This is a scrivener's error, but we might as well.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mayor, that's for the next item, so.
Oh, you're right. Okay. But we've read them together, so I'd like to put it
then
on the
that's fine.
table if you don't mind. If that's, it's just a word change. So it addresses, this is related to item 663, which has been read. This is to address a scrivener's error to change the repayment date from June 30, 2018 to June 30, 2019. Can I get a second on that, please?
Second.
Thank you. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amendments on the table. Very good. Is that the end of your presentation?
That's the end of our presentation for that item. We can certainly, I can talk about the resolution, the loan resolution.
No, we
before
don't
we
need
vote.
that. Carla's grabbing the list. Are there any questions in the meanwhile while Carla's out of the chamber? We can talk about Carla while she's out of the chamber.
I have a lot of questions, but none of them are about these items, Mayor.
Very good. All right. Well, Carla will get back and let's see who has signed up for public testimony. Here she is, the lovely Carla. 662 or 663, please.
Yes, no one signed up for either.
Very good. So with that, any further questions before I call the roll on item 662? Please call the roll.
So, Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry, the amendments. Thank you, legal counsel. This is a vote on Wheeler Amendment Number 1, adjusting the Bureau Revenue Financial Services Fund 223. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Amendment 1 is adopted. Amendment 2, reducing the external materials and services in the mayor's office general fund. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. So Amendment 2 is also adopted. Amendment 3, this is the increasing the Bureau expenses and revenues in the Bureau of Human Resources. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment's on the table. Commissioner Fritz's item that increases the Bureau expenses and personnel services. Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment is adopted. And last, pertaining to item 663, the scrivener's error. Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment is adopted to the main motion. Item 662, please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
I want to thank you for getting the new name of ONI correct. However, it's not necessary until July 1, which is when we're actually going to roll it out.
All right.
Which is why I will continue to say ONI until then. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, I think we have to do a code change too. So-
Yeah, we're working on that as well.
Yeah, so that, look forward to that. So the changes in the Portland Parks and Recreation allocation and the contingency funding really is evidence for why we're doing the cost recovery projects, why we're doing the financial sustainability program, and looking at how Parks has been funded over the last several decades and how it needs to be funded moving forward. We are hopeful that with the cost containment measures that have been implemented and the increased revenue at the end of the year, which is what always happens in parks, that we will not need the allocation. It really points out that there aren't any reserves in parks, and that is something that needs to be addressed. And so the whole council will need to be involved in those discussions over the next year so that we collectively put parks on a more sustainable financial path moving forward. Once people love their parks, they're willing to pay for them. We've got to figure out how that is all going to work together. Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted as amended. Next item, please call the roll on 663.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The resolution is adopted as amended. Next item, please call item 664.
Accept Disability Power PDX 2018 report.
And this is a report, Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I am pleased to introduce the Disability Power PDX report. Disability Power PDX is a community engagement and leadership program that operates out of the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. Through Disability Power PDX, Portlanders with disabilities were able to build relationships, learn about existing resources, and develop skills to effectively engage in Portland's community and civic life. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this year's program from staff, but especially from participants of this year's cohort. With that, I will turn it over to Joanne Johnson, there she is, who's the Disability Program Coordinator at ONI. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly. I am a member of Disability.
Excuse me, you have to talk into a microphone, otherwise the captioners can't hear.
Thank you. Of course. Thank you for the access reminder. We're all on the journey. Thank you, Commissioner Daly. I and the members of Disability Power PDX truly appreciate your unwavering support and dedication to uplifting disability issues and access. I feel hopeful when I think of the ways that each of our commissioners and our mayor has contributed to disability equity and justice in our city. Please allow me to continue by sharing with you a little bit about the structure of Disability Power PDX and how we strive to create a welcoming, equitable environment. Could the members of Disability Power PDX please raise their hands and show us all who you are? Thank you all for being here, and thank you for what you've created together. To gather this powerful group of people, application materials were translated into 10 languages and a variety of electronic formats. Disability program staff share Disability Power PDX materials with numerous disability and culturally specific organizations. Our most powerful recruitment tool was, of course, word of mouth. The people before you today cross disability, culture, language, religion, race, gender, and generations, and demonstrate the power of community sharing and coming together. For any group to do its most powerful work, members must be supported to show up fully. Supports like stipends, transportation tickets, child care, accommodations and disability access, and language access are essential for any group to sustain this level of dedication and support for equitable and sustainable participation in any of our groups. During Disability Power PDX, we developed shared community agreements, and we practiced creating access and supporting each other. We did this during lighthearted moments, and we did this during complex conversations, like the ways racism, ableism, cisgenderism, and heterosexism impact members and contributors to our group. Our 16 members came together for 8 sessions over just a few months, including 5 5-hour Saturday sessions. Beyond the sessions, members worked in pairs to set up meetings with government organizations and community organizations. Sustaining this level of dedication is possible when we provide practical supports and strive for an accessible, equitable environment. In this way, we can recognize, receive, and truly honor the gifts that each person brings to our communities. I am thrilled that you get to experience just a small part of our group's thoughtfulness, commitment, and passion today. Next, graduates of our 2018 Disability Power PDX will each share with you a little bit about the different parts of Disability Power PDX and how it impacted them. It is my privilege today to introduce to you Mohammed Asraf to share with us what is Disability Power PDX.
Thank you, Joanne, and good morning to everybody. I want to start by saying thank you for our City Council for allowing us to have this presentation, and before that, the program, PDX, Disability Power. And we are here because of you, so thank you very much. Throughout the program, we were we start discovering the program by actually going through it, because we thought it would be like any civic engagement program, but the moments that we have together in that program, the discussions that we had, it basically uncovered how unique it is. And let me share with you some of the jewels of that program. I would say this program has the diverse people that made a variety of communications together. I mean, look at us. We are from different backgrounds. We're from different religions, different languages, different ages, and we all come around the concept of respecting each other, understanding what access needs for everybody, and talking together as a community to see what's better for us. Throughout this program, also, we had an introduction to government and services and how to access this and how to participate in government as a participator, not just as somebody who receives services. Throughout this program, also, we felt that this space gave us, the underrepresented people, a voice and a space. I can say for everybody in the group that we all felt important in that room when we had our voices being heard and our concern being addressed among each other. it's not surprising to say we had hope. I know it sounds weird in this time period, but we literally, in that room, we had hope, and we still have it, and we're going to continue holding on to it, because through us, through our participation, we know that we are the future, and hope is a key to that future. I want to start talking about another segment of our presentation, which is like the topics and the subjects that we have through the program. So through our discussions, as Joanne said, we had multiple sessions in regarding of covering so many topics, including disability, filmmaking and addressing issues related to disability, art and disability, services and disability, and participation, including also subjects about safety, being a person of color and disabled, being a queer or LGBTQ and a disabled, and what that means to be in a community that mostly does not understand where you're coming from as a person. So we explored various topics. Obviously, all of us has different responses to the topics that we discussed, but all of us have had the opportunity to speak their mind and be part of like the ritual of brainstorming and have more agency on their opinion and how to express it. We also had an opportunity to discuss with presenters, and some of us had like very close interest in some of the stuff. Like, for example, we had a filmmaker who was talking about disability. And one of our members actually is a filmmaker, and he's gonna speak to you just very soon. Everybody had, you know, like none of us like knows everything. So throughout these discussions and these topics, some of us had the chance to listen and to participate in topics that they have not, or they may have not considered even like giving it a chance. So that was like a win for Disability Powered PDX. So I want to end this with, this is my piece, and thank you very much again. Before I end, I want to ask you to ask us questions. We are eager to answer your questions. We will be happy to talk to you as well. That's my piece, and I want to introduce my colleague, Dean.
Thank you, Mohammed. Hello, my name is Dean McCrae, and I'm very happy to be here today representing our committee and speaking to the work we did with community and government meetings. As an exercise, these activities had two primary purposes. The first purpose was to raise awareness among those of us participating in the Academy as regards the depth and breadth of resources available to the disabled community here in Portland. The second purpose was to provide an experience for each of us in identifying a community resource, arranging and scheduling a meeting, preparing for and actually participating in that meeting. We were divided into teams of two, and we each chose a resource to explore and eventually schedule a meeting. There was a wide variety of experiences. The meeting I was involved with went very, very well and exceeded our expectations. Others reported back that their meetings were not all that fruitful for a number of different reasons. Each small team reported back to the full committee regarding our individual experiences. As I stated, there were a variety of issues that impacted the value of each of these meetings. Some issues were logistical, some were matters of accessibility, and some were cultural. My meeting turned out to be very interesting. My partner, Renee Henriquez, and I chose to meet with Commissioner Udaley's office. Commissioner Udaley's staff member who was scheduled to meet with us ended up not being available that day of the meeting. But rather than reschedule, they assigned another staff member to our meeting, and that was Josiah Barber. It was interesting that Josiah came to the meeting prepared to walk us through the process of how city council works. We came with a completely different agenda. We shared a list of questions with him. He adapted very quickly and ended up providing us a very beneficial meeting. We were both very impressed. The value to me in having participated in these meetings can be measured on a couple different fronts. I would highly encourage those that plan the 2019 Disability PDX to continue to include this activity for their committee members. I think it's very valuable. And now I'd like to turn it over to Allison, who's going to talk to us about what's next.
Hi. We say nothing about us without us in this community. Disability Power PDX provided a place for us to explore what exactly we want to say about ourselves. It provided opportunities to determine what the about us is actually about, how to use our shared experiences to build understanding and contribute to making Portland the best it can be for all who live here. For some of us, the struggle is just to stay alive and not give up. And others have the luxury of enough bandwidth to take on additional issues. So from this pool of 16 graduates, you had a documentary filmmaker, a therapist, a blogger with a unique perspective, a grad student determined to improve health care for the disabled and aging, someone working to improve relations between Portland police and marginalized citizens, another concentrating on intersectionality, students who will focus on their education, several who are now reinvigorated to meet with elected officials, others with increased strength and ability to advocate for themselves, and at least one who now has hope to reach his dream. We will take action with momentum created by our time together, and it's already happening. One of the outreach groups we connected with was the Disability Art and Culture Project. They're planning a Disability Pride March this summer, and you can bet we'll be there, and we'll be actively helping promote it. We plan to stay in touch with each other, and many of us also hope to stay in touch with you. Perhaps projects will come up where our skills and experience will come in handy. We have so much to offer, and we are so keen to offer it. So please utilize this solid resource that truly you helped create. And as Mohammed said, after Luam speaks, we'll have time for questions, and we sincerely hope you'll ask a few. In closing here with me, one of our members wondered what it would take for us to function as a group out in the world, as well as we did around our table. And being around that table was not always easy. There was a sliding scale of annoying glitches from, oh well, to you've got to, kidding. Yet we persevered. We cared enough about each other, the work we were doing, and our disability community to keep going. And another reason we functioned so well, as has been mentioned, was because of the encouragement to succeed. We did our best to try to make sure everyone had what they needed in order to fully participate to the best of their ability. We were valued and respected, and we experienced concrete examples of equity around that table. And there's a lot more to work to be done before that ethos becomes commonplace in the world at large. But by building upon what we've gained from Disability Power PDX, we hope to start by seeing the City of Roses become a leader in creating an equitable environment for all her people, and we look forward to playing an integral part in making it happen. Thank you, and now here's Luam with closing comments.
Hello, my name is Johannes. Disability Power PDX has helped me grow. It has helped me mature for my future. I met different people a lot, learn a lot. We met people will keep working with us. This is the beginning. We can make it better for people with different disabilities. I should like to tell you is that everyone that made this possible, and we made our people to have different experience. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I want to congratulate Luam on her recent graduation. And yes. And also note that she is the sister of Winta Johannes, and we've now had 3 Johanneses come to City Council, so now we're only missing Mom and Grandma, I think. Are they here?
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Luam.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a question. What's next?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that part of this training was so that you are then going within your communities and also continuing to contribute in
I can speak to that for myself in that we, as you heard, besides the meetings that I spoke about, we also had guest speakers come in each session and topics, a wide variety of guest speakers. But one of the speakers was a woman named Cheryl Green, whom I knew by reputation, but I never actually met her before. And she showed one of her films and talked about the work that she's doing, which is producing documentary films around and supporting disability. I'm a filmmaker, I've been a filmmaker for a long time, and kind of converted what I'm doing into purely documentary about 3 or 4 years ago. After that presentation, I met with her. We then subsequently met 2 other times outside, but I've pitched a project to her that it looks like we're going to move forward with, and it will be a disability. Essentially, it's not completely fleshed out yet, but essentially what we're going to do is try to demonstrate what it's like for disabled people in Portland, mobility issues, blind issues, deaf, mental disability issues, what it's like to navigate Portland as a disabled person. And I think we have some real interesting ideas. From my own personal experience, I can tell you that in my circle, my family, my friends, they see my struggles each day, but they don't understand exactly how deep they go. The example I used when we were talking around the table was sidewalks. In my scooter, there's plenty of places I can't go in Northeast Portland for one reason or another, but the average mobile human doesn't ever register to them. There's a number of restaurants in my neighborhood I can't get into. So that's going to be the purpose of what we're doing, and that's how I'm moving forward. That's the next step.
Thank you.
We're forming a Facebook group, and that will be a way for everyone to stay in touch with us as well. And as I said, the Disability Pride March is coming up in August or September, so that's probably the next time where we'll be able to be physically in a similar space. We know how important it is to keep the connection going, and we're doing a lot of outreach with each other through email just every time there's an event. We just had the Real Abilities Film Festival in Portland, which is our films by and about disabled filmmakers. or disabled actors, and everybody was invited to all those. We're just trying to really keep up with letting people know all the things that are happening.
I expect that each of you got on fire about a particular aspect of something that you learned that you'll now pursue in more depth.
Yes, I'm very excited about the Police Accountability Commission you've planned, and so that was already something I was friends with James Chassie, and I have dealt with some issues with.
That would be very helpful, thank you.
So I think I can present a good example, because I don't look like somebody who would have troubles with
Thank
people.
Could I ask a question related to that? And this was obviously the part that was, it's a fantastic report and a fantastic group, and I'm really energized by the work you're doing, and we obviously want to continue to support it. But I'm interested in the conversations that you are having with the police on interactions with people with disabilities. And as mayor, lucky me, I also get to be the police commissioner. I am very interested in moving that conversation forward. So if you could let me know how best to approach that from your perspective and what your needs are with regard to how best to have that conversation take place and what space makes the most sense for you to have that conversation, I'm all in. Related to that, we are beginning our process. We're in the early stages of re-engaging through our settlement agreement, a community engagement piece. I very, very much want your perspective around that table. And so if we could talk about that at a later date. And finally, later on this morning, we're going to take up what are called our public safety support specialists. These are non-sworn police folks who are going to be engaged in a lot of administrative work, but I feel like there's going to be some intersects as well with the needs and interests of your community, maybe not on interactions with the police directly, but on other issues. And I'd like to start that as a fresh, meaningful relationship from the get-go. So if we could all work together on that, I'll take your lead on it and in the way you want to approach it, but consider me a partner who's all in any way that you think is useful.
Great. And will you tell me the name again, the Public Support Safety Officer?
Yeah, the name keeps changing, but it's currently Public Safety Support Specialist.
Okay, PSSS, okay.
Yeah,
Right,
thank you.
you.
It was originally called Community Service Officers, and then we ran into some labor problems, so
okay.
Nothing's easy around here.
I think that wraps up our presentation. Thank you, everyone. Yes?
Can I have 1 second?
Yes, sir.
We forgot to thank Joanne. And we cannot forget to thank Joanne and Alexis and every person who was like in Disability Power PDX. I'm so proud to be part of that, and thank you again.
Thank you all for being here. We sure appreciate it. I'll accept a motion.
Thank you. Move to accept the report.
Second.
Please call the roll, Carla.
Saltzman?
Well, thank you very much for your uplifting report, and I wish you all the success in your future endeavors and providing more discussion for council on issues around people with disabilities and how we help them be successful. Hi.
Udaley.
So I want to highlight the process and thoughtfulness that went into planning for this year's cohort, because I think it just keeps getting better and better every year. Disability Power PDX's structure and content were informed by feedback from last year's Disability Leadership Academy, which is what we called it last year. And as a result, we have a cohort that models the cross-disability, cross-cultural, multi-racial, and multi-generational approach that I'd love to see in all of the city's programs. We as elected officials cannot do our jobs well if we don't have representative voices who are informed and empowered advocates, and I include myself in that. I am a disability advocate, but my experience is as a parent around a very specific set of challenges that certainly does not reflect the broad spectrum of needs and challenges experienced by the larger disability community. So while I might be real aware of curb cuts and accessible playgrounds, I can't serve the entire community without your input. So I want to just acknowledge that and encourage you to continue. I appreciate the work that Disability Power PDX is doing to build that pipeline of powerful advocates. And I'm pleased to hear that the participants want to continue working with one another and with the city. And I look forward to finding additional ways my office and my bureau can support those efforts. When I spoke at the Disability Power kickoff, I emphasized one of the lessons I've learned in my own work as an advocate. As many of you know, I went through a similar program for parents and adults experiencing disabilities called Partners in Policy Making. And while I may have forgotten 90% of what we learned in that program, I haven't forgotten the relationships that I formed, and I'm still in touch with a large number of people that I went through that program with. All of us became better advocates for our kids and for ourselves and for other community members. Some of us went on to work with disability organizations. Some of us went on to found organizations. Some of us went on to elected office. So the cohort, and we've supported each other along the way. And I want to point out that Nico, one of the participants here, is the child of a friend of mine who I made during that period of time. And I've known Nico since he was in kindergarten. And I think he just finished his senior year. No? One. Senior this fall. Yes, okay, same as my son. So maybe you could talk Henry into participating in this program next year, Nico. I don't think I'd succeed with that. I also want to thank Joanne for her work. She's always disappearing on me. There we go. Yes. To facilitate Disability Power PDX. I've seen in the report and heard from the participants how meaningful the relationships built through this process have been, and that is a testament to your good work. And I just wanted to say about the sliding scale of annoying glitches you described, welcome to City Hall. It's just a fact of life here. So finally, I especially want to thank the participants and the presenters for being here with us today. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Well, thank you to everybody who came for this report and participated in this program. Sometimes it gets a little discouraging on the council where you think you're not making any progress, but just in this past week, I announced that we're going to be building the third fully accessible playground that I've been able to announce since I've been in charge of Portland Park for Recreation in Gabriel Park in southwest Portland. We opened the Spring Garden Playground, which also has accessibility features, and the Spring Garden Park. The mayor and I celebrated the opening of Green Hop Cannabis business on Saturday, which is getting a grant that's going to provide support for another disproportionately impacted community. Last night, Commissioner Udaley and I celebrated 10 years of Som Subedi being in the United States, and he's had this meteoric rise to being establishing the New Portlanders, the Parks for New Portlanders Commission. And then just earlier today, Commissioner Udaley and I voiced a concern, and the mayor heard it, about short-term rentals. So this program is another example of something that you think of, and it turns into something wildly more wonderful than you ever thought it might be. And so I want to thank Amalia Alarcon-Demoris and Nicole Sharon, who previously helped guide the disability program within the Office of Neighbourhood Involvement, and had the good sense to hire Joanne Johnson after Nicole moved to the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And Joanne Johnson, you have just taken this program, along with Commissioner Udaley, to incredibly wonderful new heights, expanding this particular program and building on what's been done before and just making it so much better. So I'm so grateful. And Joanne is everywhere. It's not that you don't see her, because she's just everywhere, representing the city and disability community in such a charming and wonderful way. And I really appreciate, you look like you're coming forward to say something.
I desperately want to add something. Is that okay?
May I? I'd like to yield my time, a little bit of my time to Joanne Johnson.
I want to reiterate that this could not have been done without community. I mean, sure, I put in a lot of work, but the cross-disability, cross-cultural, cross-religion, cross-generation, that is because our community has come around this and spread the word and encouraged and supported each other. We have members in the audience today from last year who were supporting members this year. So I really deeply appreciate your kind words, and I just want to say, this is us.
Yeah.
It's not me, it's us.
And this is us. This is all of us, and this is how it's supposed to be. And so, yes, my final piece was going to be thanks to the communities. And it's many different communities, as Commissioner Udaley noted. Each of us has challenges. Some of them are seen and some of them are not seen. And together, we are so much better than the individuals and the sum of our parts. Together, we can do really great things. This is a really great thing. Thank you very much for leading it. Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, this is a fantastic collaboration, and thank you, Commissioner Udaley, for bringing forward a great report, fantastic presentation. It, to me, opens up a world of opportunity, and I look forward to seeing where this will go over the course of the next year. And I certainly expressed my narrow hopes and dreams for how I see a potential partnership unfolding here around some public safety interaction issues. Joanne, I just have to add, I know you don't like being singled out, and I agree with you that this is a community effort and this has been a group effort. But I want to talk about an important aspect of you. And I never get a chance to really say this in public. Being mayor is a very challenging job. Some of you may have noticed that. And I usually do, but I don't always walk into City Hall going, so glad I'm back. It's always fun to be in City Hall. Wherever you are in City Hall, you have an attitude that inspires me. You've got a can-do attitude, and you have a really uplifting attitude. And even when we just sort of pass in the hallways, the way you smile, the way you say hello, the way you ask me how things are going, you're just a really good person. And I think that's part of the reason you were successful in convening these important policy issues. So I didn't want that moment to pass. I certainly vote aye, the report's accepted. Thank you, everybody, for fabulous work. Next item, 665.
Accept report on 2018 Summer Free-for-All program.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, this is an annual report on Park Summer Free-for-All program. This program has been going for many years, and it provides fun summer activities and services to children and family throughout the summer, including lunches at some sites. The activities also include live music, representing the cultural diversity of Portland, family-friendly movies, free lunches for kids, as well as arts and crafts and sports and games. There is something free and fun for everyone in our parks this summer, and everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. And of course, it's not free. It's taxpayer funded and funded by volunteers and donations. And we appreciate that it's somewhat similar to the previous item. It's where everybody gets together and city staff help support the community. So Summer Free For All has partnered with 49 community groups, including local businesses, neighborhood associations, culturally specific communities, and nonprofits across the city. One of the core services is the lunch program. Thanks, Commissioner Saltzman, for your ongoing support of that. You kind of were the glue that kept it together during the recession and making sure that those children get their lunches. Summer Free For All will serve more than 100,000 lunches at 25 different sites this year, which will make a big difference to the kids and families most in need. But again, anybody who shows up can get one. This wouldn't be possible without the partnership of 5 local school districts, Meals on Wheels, Urban Cleaners, and Oregon Food Bank, who we thank for your collaboration. And now, Portland Parks and Recreation Services Manager Eileen Argentina will guide the rest of the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm joined today by Sue Pack, our Arts, Culture, and Special Events Manager, as well as Kelly Torres, our Development Manager. In 2017, and do we have the...
Yes.
In 2017, Portland Parks and Recreation conducted a community needs survey. The 2003 participants who responded were statistically representative of Portland, both by neighborhood coalition and by race and ethnicity. When participants were asked to rate the importance of recreation programs, outdoor arts and culture events rated the highest with an average score of 3.8 out of 5. So we thank Council for the $500,000 of general fund support for this beloved program. With the cost of living rapidly rising, these community gatherings for free events are all the more important to the city's livability and to families that may not have access otherwise. Minimum wage increases now through 2022 will improve livability, but these increases significantly impact Summer Free for All's operating budget, which has gone from $850,000 last year to $1.1 million this year, a 29% increase, largely due to accelerated minimum wage increases and newly represented seasonal staff. On to the next slide. Not only are free outdoor arts and culture programs in high demand among Portlanders, Summer Free for All is an important program advancing the City of Portland and PP&R's racial equity goals. This summer, we'll provide job opportunities for 110 Portlanders, including youth, and hire 315 local performing artists. As a citywide program, we're ensuring that Summer Free for All staff reflect the community and kids we serve. This year, 50% of seasonal staff supporting the movie and concert events are people of color, and 39%...
Eileen, I'm just going to interrupt you because we actually don't have a quorum at this point, so if we could just wait until we do.
Of course. Thank you, Commissioner.
Sorry. That didn't happen at a time where we've got a really interesting slide with lots of information on it, but here we go.
Great.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, this summer we'll provide job opportunities for 110 Portlanders, including youth, and we'll hire 315 local performing artists. As a citywide program, we're ensuring that Summer Free for All staff reflect the communities and kids we serve. This year, 50% of seasonal staff supporting the movie and concert events are people of color, and 39% of free lunch and play program staff speak a second language. As you can see in the Summer Free for All guides in the packets in front of you, the program lineup reflects our city's rich and diverse culture and communities. We've also forged new partnerships this year to increase access and engagement with communities of color and immigrants and refugees. And as always, the guides are produced in 9 different languages to provide the greatest access. So we thank you again for your continued investment in Summer Free for All and the important services it provides to the community. And now Sue Pack, Arts, Culture, and Special Events Manager, will talk to you more about our new partnerships.
Thank you, Eileen. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
So the mission of Summer Free for All is to build community and to celebrate Portland's diversity. Our movie and concert events are all organized with community partners. Each partner group hosts an event, choosing their park location, selecting the movies and musical talent, and bringing people together from their community. Historically, Summer Free for All community partnerships have been defined by geography, with the majority of our partners being neighborhood associations and groups. As Portland gentrifies and communities are displaced, with the greatest impact on people of color and immigrants and refugees, we have actively worked to expand the definition of community to include culturally specific and identity-based groups that span a citywide geography. Some of our new community partners this year include APANO, that's the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, hosting a film in English and Vietnamese at Harrison Park as a part of their annual Mic Check series. Black Parent Initiative, hosting the Dawson Park concert series. Bollywood Dreams, hosting our first Bollywood movie in Hindi and English at Laurelhurst Park in celebration of India's Independence Day. The Tongan community, hosting the movie Moana as part of the Tonga Day 2018 at the new Gateway Discovery Park. And the artist collective Young, Gifted, and Brown, or YGB Portland, hosting Black Panther at Lents Park. And our ongoing partnership with Latino Network continues with the 4th annual Festival Latino featuring the movie Coco in Spanish with English subtitles at the new Cully Park, built in partnership with Verde. Our free lunch and play program is cited in neighborhoods where more than 50% of the kids qualify for free or reduced lunches. This summer, we are pleased to add an additional Monday through Friday lunch site at the new Lewitt View Park. And in East Portland,
You just have to be about 6 inches away from it.
thank you, thank you. And in East Portland, in areas without parks, we have the Mobile Play program, with staff traveling to apartment complexes, providing fun activities and positive social engagement for kids most in need. This program is community-driven and evolves each year with decisions being made in collaboration with an advisory committee made up of the partners listed on the screen. As you might recall, this group was honored to receive the Equity in Practice Award at the 2017 Spirit of Portland Awards. Partnership is critical to advancing Parks equity goals, and we are proud of Summer Free for All's commitment and efforts in this area. Now I'd like to turn it over to Kelly Torres, our development manager, who will share with you how we are leveraging general fund dollars to make Summer Free for All possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen and Sue, for highlighting so many positive aspects of Summer Free for All. Sharing our diverse and impactful program options with potential sponsors in 2018 has been a privilege. Our team has had the confidence to fully deliver on our mission, and the results of that confidence are tangible. From a development standpoint, the idea of cultivating community encouraged many sponsors, grantors, and individuals to lean in a bit more this year. We also acknowledge our philanthropic partner, the Portland Parks Foundation, who's joining us here today. We also acknowledge the dozens of community members who have been raising funds, and you will get a chance to hear from one of those community members today. For every general fund dollar designated to Summer Free for All, we have leveraged 65 cents in cash and $3.27 in in-kind program support. I would like to draw your focus to the sponsor page in our Summer Free for All guide. This highlights the commitment of local businesses and contributors such as Elmer's Restaurant, whose local owners, in their own words, love supporting programs that allow families to enjoy time together making memories. We are proud this local business is also a new premier sponsor this year, and we are excited for you to hear from Jill today representing Elmer's Restaurants. We would also like you to notice the foundational support of program partners at the base of that page. These partners represent school districts, arts organizations, local nonprofits, and corporations, all of whom fill the gap to provide critical services throughout the summer. And now Eileen Argentina will introduce our invited guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly and Sue. As you know, community partnerships have become the heartbeat of Summer Free for All, and I'm proud to introduce two community partners to share their heartfelt testimony today. First, I'd like to invite Jill Ramos, Vice President of Elmer's Restaurants.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I am Jill Ramos, the Vice President of Elmer's Restaurants. It's my pleasure to be here today to share our excitement in joining Summer Free for All as a premier sponsor this year. As a group of independently owned and operated family dining restaurants, we know how important it is to give back and build strong connections in the communities that we serve. In 1960, when Walt Elmer opened his first Elmer's Restaurant here in Portland, it truly was a family affair. Walt and his wife Dorothy and their 3 sons wanted to create a place where families would enjoy spending time together, making memories over a quality, fresh, homemade meal. 58 years later, our local owners continue to strive towards that same goal and deliver on our mission to delight our guests. Our local owners enjoy keeping marketing dollars in the local community, but are very selective when considering programs to support, preferring to do more than just simply write a check. We want to participate and engage and build relationships and extend our mission outward to delight the community. Summer Free for All's mission and values align with ours, and the programs offered reach an audience that mirrors our guests and team members. Diverse, hardworking families and individuals that deserve some free entertainment, fun, and a more opportunity to connect and make positive memories together. It's a bonus to us that these programs also include free access to lunch for children, as well as encourage people to get outside, explore their beautiful parks, and interact with each other. Our team is looking forward to attending the summer's events as a sponsor and also as community members. We have chosen to participate at the movies and concerts closest to our restaurants in order to truly connect local owners, managers, and team members with their local communities. We look forward to interacting with the community outside of our restaurants, making a few new friends along the way, and growing our Elmer's family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to just thank you in particular. Elmer's has been a family favorite of ours, particularly the one on Stark and Washington. And it's actually the place that I traditionally go for my election morning breakfast. So it's, I'm really pleased that you're joining our family here and for your personalized support. So thank you for being here this morning as well.
I'd like to invite our other speaker today, Kalini Fusutua, a program coordinator at Asian Family Services, leader in the Tongan community, and a member of the Tonga Day 2018 Executive Committee.
Yes, good morning. My name is Kalini Fusutua. Yes, I'm a program coordinator at URCO. That's my 9-to-5 job. And my 24-hour job is being a leader for my community. I'm happy to be here to support Movie in the Park and Free Fall. And I just want to share our experience with the program and where it is and where it started from. Last year, they reached out to me that they want to invite us, the Tongan community, to be part in the Movie in the Park. That started in Southwest Portland with the Moana movie. He was excited for our community because this is the first we're invited to perform in a movie that's about us. And when we were there, we had Q&A during the session, and a question from the audience was asked, how do you guys see and perceive Moana? Because it's a Hollywood movie, and then sometimes, it doesn't reflect, the community or the people they're trying to portray. And I told them that this is the best Hollywood movie that portray us. This is as close as has in the past. This is real for us, and we appreciate it. That we feel like Hollywood is reaching out and doing their homework before they start selling their product. And we feel that this is what Portland Park is doing. They're reaching to us. They want to hear specifically from us how we, what it is for us to be part in the Movie in the Park. Because of the political climate, sometimes parents and families, hesitate to go in the public area. But this event has brought multi-generation grandparents, parents, children to the park and have a family bonding. This is very important for us because we're a very collective community. That's just part of our culture. And this program does provide culture specific because they're reaching out to us. The last year when we went to the park, not only we performed, we had a Mosi Musikola, a Tongan string band, but we had a young man that was hired from the program that was part of the setup team. So that's something new. Not only we got invited, but they also hired somebody from our community. Moving on for this year, we are again partnering for 2018 for our Tonga Day in August 18. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for joining us last year. Sorry that your scheduled time to speak was not on time. And I'm hoping that our mayor will join us. I know you were not available last year. Hopefully this year you can join us with the rest of the commissioner. And we appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalini. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to report on the 2018 Summer Free For All program. We're excited about another amazing summer ahead in Portland's fabulous park system, and all of us are available to answer any questions you may have.
So I had a question. So it's around the free lunches, and I know we've talked about this literally every year. I mean, the summer programs end, according to what I'm reading here, like August 17th or August 31st. And there's still quite a bit of summer there left for kids that no longer have access to a free lunch. School's not started yet, so I thought we had solved this. Have we?
It is a perennial problem. Some of it just has to do with the availability of staffing and just being able to keep the program going. And
I would also, I'd like to bring up Charity Montez, who is the supervisor for Summer Free for All and has more detailed information on our lunch and play program.
Good morning.
Morning.
Our partners, the school districts, work with us. They provide the lunches, and then our staff serve the lunches in the parks. And there is a timing issue with, even though school hasn't started yet, they have switched their kitchens. At the end of the season, they switched their kitchens to start prepping for the school year. So the sites that end in August 22nd, that's because the Portland Public School District goes back to school soon after that. And then the August 31st, those sites are in East Portland, and the other districts go back to school after that. So we work with our lunch partners, the lunch providers, to create the best schedule that we can to make sure that we can serve as many lunches.
So if I'm hearing you right, so somehow the fact that PPS is gearing up for the school year means they can no longer provide the meals to us for those 2 or 3 week period, or?
It makes it very difficult for them to have their kitchens make thousands of lunches for the summer programs while they're also transitioning to make the lunches for the school year.
So I think the answer to your question, Commissioner, is that yes, we have the lunches for as long as physically possible. When the school kitchens are closed for cleaning and getting ready for the school year, there just isn't anywhere or any staff who are able to make them. But yes, we certainly understand and try to maximize the length of the serving of lunches.
So I see Meals on Wheels as one of the sponsors here, as is the Children's Levy. Have they been approached about providing meals during that interim gap period? Or?
We've had extensive conversations with Meals on Wheels this spring, and we were not able to make that happen for this summer, but we're looking into that for next year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. We'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the report.
Second. Carla, please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Well, thank you for a great report. It looks like an outstanding summer program, summer free-for-all. Thank you. Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Thank you very much for the report, and more particularly for all the work that's done in partnership with the community. Like the previous item, this program has grown, much of it under Commissioner Fish's leadership during the recession, when people were taking more and more staycations and it became absolutely essential. Now that we have more experience and more commitment to culturally specific events. I think you heard about the wide variety of things that are happening in the parks this summer. So I do encourage everybody not only to go to your local park, if you're fortunate enough to have one, but try some of the parks in the other areas of the city that you might not be as familiar with. They are good ways to meet people, because you don't need an invitation to go to a park. You can just pack your picnic and go, and you're very welcome in all of Portland parks. Aye.
Wheeler?
Fantastic presentation. Thank you. I vote aye. The report's accepted. Thank you for your really hard work on that. Next up, colleagues, 676.
Appoint Jeffrey Cordial, Aaron Faegre, Joshua Kleiber, David Posada, and Bob Sweeney to the Alternative Technology Advisory Committee for terms to expire June 19, 2021.
Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the pleasure of bringing forward 5 new appointees to the Alternative Technology Advisory Committee, or ATAC. The Bureau of Development Services established the alternative, I'm just going to say ATAC, to provide expert advice on the viability of new sustainable technologies that aren't covered by the building code. The ATAC assists BDS in evaluating sustainable technologies by reviewing available test data, case studies, or any other relevant information submitted by an applicant. Based on the submitted information, ATAC will make a recommendation to the Bureau of Development Services on the use of technology. And now Mika Keenan from BDS will present the proposed appointees. Welcome.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Mika Keenan. I'm with the Bureau of Development Services, and I'm here on behalf of Terry Whitehill, our building official. So Portland City Code 24 requires that the Alternative Technology Advisory Committee have a minimum of 3 members appointed by the mayor and approved by city council. The members shall consist of design professionals, construction contractors, and persons associated with a university with an engineering school. Our first appointee is Jeffrey Cordial to the ATAC, and Jeffrey has spent the last 9 years of his career learning the ins and outs of sustainable building technology and green energy production. Jeffrey has been heavily involved in the solar and green energy industry in Portland through his role on PAC Northwest, District Manager for CED Green Tech, and as a business member of both the U.S. Green Building Council and the Oregon Solar Energy Industry Association. The second appointee is Aaron Faegre, and Aaron has 35 years of experience in architecture and engineering and has worked on many innovative projects. He is the principal of his own firm, working in Oregon, California, Washington, British Columbia, and many other locations. He is a physicist, architect, civil engineer, and landscape architect who specializes in work requiring sensitive cooperation between citizen groups, public agencies, and the business community with a particular interest in public and community facilities. The third appointee is Joshua Kleiber, and Joshua has over 6 years of code consulting experience in Portland and other jurisdictions, and 10 years experience in residential remodeling. Over the years, Joshua has worked with teams of architects, developers, engineers, plan reviewers, and inspectors on a daily basis. These teams run the gamut from residential owners to design teams of multinational corporations that are based in the US, China, Bangladesh, Canada, Guyana, and other countries. The fourth appointee is David Posada. And David has over 13 years' experience providing expertise in energy efficiency and sustainability strategies for leading architectural firms. David was the co-designer of the first Portland Metro Habitat for Humanity houses to achieve LEED certification. He served as passive house consultant for one of the first certified multifamily passive house projects in the U.S. And finally, Bob Sweeney is the last appointee, and Bob has over 40 years of experience in public health and environmental protection with emphasis on on-site water treatment regulations, siting, design inspections, troubleshooting, and training. He has extensive experience reviewing, approving, and applying for approval of innovative technology. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Fritz.
There doesn't appear to be anybody who identifies as a woman on this committee.
No.
Why is that?
I couldn't answer that specifically. I believe that the process for selecting ATAC members is to do an open recruitment, and then the applicants are reviewed based on skills. So it could be that maybe no women applied for this committee. I'm not really sure. I can get back to you on that and check on the process.
You mentioned that there's a minimum of 3. Is there a maximum specified for how many people can be on it?
I don't believe so.
So, as we know, sometimes women don't volunteer because we think that we are not worthy or whatever, or maybe just didn't. Would you be willing to do some additional outreach and bring back a couple of nominees who identify as female? Because it just is extremely troubling to me in 2018, especially for a technology committee, especially with engineering, because we know from the experience with the Water Bureau and parks and environmental services, we do have female engineers.
Right. Absolutely.
And maybe people could take this, who might be watching at home, as... so what is the time commitment for this committee?
The committee, I believe, convenes on an as-needed basis when there are applications that come in. So these technologies are outside of the building code, so there's not really a code for them to follow. The committee was in place in 2006 and 2007, but was disbanded because there wasn't a need for the committee during the downturn in the economy. So it was recently brought together based on need. So I think as applications come in, the committee comes together to review them.
So could you give an estimate of if somebody was thinking, well, maybe I could volunteer for this, so how often and for how long would they be meeting?
Well, I know most of the committees work on an on a monthly basis. Sometimes boards don't meet if there's no application, so I would say the most this committee would probably meet is monthly.
And for an hour or two at a time?
Correct.
During the workday?
Correct.
Okay. So, and how would somebody get in touch with you to volunteer her services?
Well, I would say that the best person to contact would be Terry Whitehill, who is our building official. Okay. I can work with Terry on doing additional outreach and get you some more information on how these folks were selected.
Or somebody could call 823-4000 and say, I'd like to be on the technology committee.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just add, there are a number of organizations that focus on partnership and leadership development of women specifically engaged in technology, and I think we should be very intentional in our outreach to those organizations. I'm sure they could connect us with a lot of potentially interested candidates. I share Commissioner Fritz's concern, both about the lack of women as well as the lack of people of color on the committee, given all of our other objectives and frankly the investments we're making through Prosper Portland to help facilitate growth in entrepreneurial and technology opportunities for women and people of color. It just feels like there's a disconnect here.
Okay.
And it's on us to address it, and I hear you saying that loudly and clearly, that that's your objective, so I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
And thank you for Commissioner Fritz for raising that. Any further items? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Move to accept the nominations.
And I'll
or
second.
appointments, sorry.
Please call the roll.
Saltzman,
Well, thank you to the committee members for their service. Aye.
Udaly,
Thank you, Mika, for being here, and thank you to our new committee members. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Well, thank you, Mika Keenan, having worked with you on the
Excuse me, this is a report.
You can
Excuse
make
me.
anything a report.
This is an
assigning
interruption
people
in
to
violation
committees.
of
That's
policy.
not a report.
Thank you, Mika Keenan, having worked with you on the tree code.
Excuse
I know
me.
how hard you work to be inclusive, and so.
Excuse me, Mr. Walsh, you've been warned.
Would you explain that?
One moment, sorry for the interruption.
Would you explain that?
It is, in fact,
This is a report. There is no public testimony on a report.
This is not a report.
It
Yes.
says right in the
Yes, it
agenda,
is.
right here, report. It is a report.
You're not asking anything. Tell the mayor to throw me out. Run! God, I love that word. You're blinking the sun. Would you move?
Did I already call the roll? Carla?
I'm in the middle of making
Oh,
my
I'm
speech.
sorry.
But was hoping to not be interrupted again. So my comments are in no way disparaging you, nor the 5 people who are volunteering to serve on this committee. I appreciate them stepping up to serve. I just know that there are people out there who can add a different perspective. And so with that...
Man, the sugar words. You don't mean anything. You're a fraud too, Amanda. I'm leaving. I'm just leaving. 5 shits.
Wow, that shows us.
Never a
Sorry.
dull moment. But he's right. It's really challenging to keep one's train of thought under circumstances like this. I think I'll just vote aye.
Wheeler.
Thank you. I think this is a great time to be involved in this committee, and I appreciate your very positive response to Commissioner Fritz's questions about the participation of women in particular on this committee. The city is moving ahead in leaps and bounds to adopt technologies, to find new ways to engage technologies in all of our bureaus and in all of our activities. And I believe this committee is going to be at the nexus of a lot of those opportunities. So thank you. I vote aye. The report is accepted. We'll do a second reading, and then we have Commissioner Fish coming back. 677, please.
677, vacate a portion of Southwest Falcon Street, east of Southwest Barber Boulevard, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Colleagues, this is a second reading of an ordinance. This has been previously presented. Public testimony has been taken. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Well, I appreciate the presentation we had last week, and I'm very impressed with the plans the Gary Fallu family has for property that they have owned for quite a while, and property they've acquired over the years, too, to make an outstanding development for the people who live in Southwest Portland. So looking forward to it. Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you for your work on that, Commissioner. So our staffs have been confabbing on item 679. I believe we have Commissioner Fish coming back on the line.
Commissioner Fish, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So we'll take this up again without objection. So my understanding is our staffs have met and they have not successfully found a date anytime in the near future where we have a full quorum on this item. So I'd like to have it be considered now, but I want to have a further conversation per my colleagues' discussions.
I move to change from a $4 a night fee to a 3.25% fee, with staff to come back with the details on how to do that.
Second, for the sake of discussion.
Very good. Should we take up your amendment, Commissioner Fritz?
Well, I said what I thought was persuasive to the majority of the council before, that it just doesn't seem equitable that a $15 a night room would be charged the same as a $1,200 a night room. And I think doing it on a percentage basis is actually more likely to withstand objections.
So I'll just put in my 2 cents on this again. While I agree that a percentage is obviously a more progressive strategy, I also want to honor the fact that there's been months of work in this. This is legally defensible. We heard from the Bureau that they evaluated different strategies. They settled on this particular strategy, which I think is acceptable. Commissioner Fish put in an amendment which I supported, which I think makes a lot of sense, to actually do the data collection and get the information. We always reserve the right as a city council, if we need to revisit this under another structure, to be able to do so. Any further discussion on the amendment? Commissioner Fish, I want to make sure you can hear us okay.
Crystal clear.
Very good. Please call the roll on Commissioner Fritz's amendment.
Fish?
No.
Saltzman?
No.
Udaly?
Well, I'm surprised to hear that there's been months of discussion on this topic, because my office has not been meaningfully engaged. I'm frustrated in this moment. In my conversations with revenue, I'm not convinced that a percentage puts us at a considerably higher risk of challenge than a flat fee. I vote yes.
Fritz?
We heard from 30-some people last week who said it was the first opportunity they had had to comment. And so I also was not involved in a meaningful way about any discussion of should we do it this way, should we do it another way. I'm starting to wonder whether it makes any difference if I show up, never mind if the public shows up. Aye.
Wheeler?
No, the motion fails. To the main motion, any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Fish?
I'm going to vote aye. I'm proud to co-sponsor this ordinance. I think it is carefully calibrated. It has been reviewed by both Office of Revenue and by legal counsel. It is defensible. I do not believe that it will trigger an exit clause by any of our platforms. And furthermore, we desperately need the proceeds to be applied to the most urgent issue of our time, which is affordable housing. And there's a lot of room for how we can define the different categories of urgency. So respectfully, I vote aye.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Well, I want to encourage my colleagues to actually engage my office on issues around affordable housing, short-term rentals, and tenant protections, since that is the primary reason I'm here and the most urgent issue to me. I want to thank all the people that came out last week and gave very insightful and reasonable testimony, especially the very small-time, short-term rental operators who are on the low end of the spectrum, and especially those who are offering rooms in their home as a way to remain in their homes. And I'm sorry that your valid testimony was not taken into account in this item. No.
Fritz.
This is an example of where if we had had a work session, if we had had a hearing and sent it away for more work, we could have come back with something really good that everybody could have supported. And I am getting very frustrated with hearing time and again from people coming to the testimony table saying it's the first time they've had to weigh in when they are the people most affected. I also am getting frustrated with Commissioner Udaley about not being included in discussions ahead of time. No.
Wheeler.
So first of all, I want to express that I'm hearing what my colleagues are saying. And if there's more and better work that we can do around internal communications or the interrelationships between bureaus that are working on issues and commissioners' staffs, I will absolutely commit to doing whatever we need to do to improve that process. So I want to start by saying I'm hearing and respecting what my colleagues are saying. Second of all, I do want to acknowledge that this has been in the works for several months, that there were different alternatives that were explored as per the staff testimony when we heard this item the first time. The revenues being raised from this are going both towards housing affordability and homelessness, something that is a priority for this city council. And I look forward to continuing to work on this issue both in the near term as well as the long term. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted as amended. Next item, 678.
Mayor, may I just make one last comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Fish. I apologize.
I just want to state a friendly objection. I understand a prior speaker got up and as he was leaving the room made an insulting comment directed to all 5 members of council. I would like it recorded that I was not present today.
So noted. Thank you, Commissioner Fish.
Right.
I appreciate it. Item 678, please.
Just to note, we are disconnecting with Commissioner Fish.
Thank you.
Sorry. Item
678, please.
678.
Yes, 678, please.
Adopt parking management manual to establish guidelines for managing public parking in the city of Portland.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. Commissioner Salzman.
Yes, I'd like to have this returned to my office, please.
Without objection. Next item is 681.
Accept bid of Interlochen, Inc. for the Sunnyside East reconstruction and Green Streets project for $2,926,743.
Colleagues, Commissioner Fish asked I read a brief opening talking point to this. The purpose of this legislation is to authorize the execution of a construction contract for the Sunnyside East reconstruction and Green Streets project. Larry Pilat, purchasing manager, will give a brief presentation. Ruben Gonzalez Baird, project manager from the Bureau of...
Sorry to interrupt. We don't have a quorum.
We don't have a quorum.
Let's take a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 11:40. my statement again on behalf of Commissioner Fish. I want to make sure I do it right. The purpose of this legislation is to authorize the execution of a construction contract for the Sunnyside East Reconstruction and Green Streets project. Larry Platt, Purchasing Manager, will give a brief presentation. Emily Short, the product manager from the Bureau of Environmental Services, is also going to be here or may be here to answer any questions.
Oh, there she is.
Very
Good
good.
morning. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Larry Platt.
Larry, is your mic
Procurement
on? Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Maybe I had the paper up.
That's good.
Anyway. You have before you the procurement report recommending a contract award to Interlochen, Inc. for the Sunnyside East Reconstruction and Green Streets projects, $2,926,743. The engineer's estimate on the project was $2,641,000. The Bureau's confidence level was high. On August 30th, 2017, Council approved the ordinance number 188578 for procurement services to solicit the project. The project was advertised in the city's electronic procurement system. Bids were opened on May 8th. 5 bids were received in response, and Interlochen, Inc. is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder at $2,926,743, which is $285,743 or 10.9% over the engineer's estimate. Portland Bureau of Environmental Services, along with Procurement Service, identified an aspirational goal for certified disadvantaged minority women and emerging small business subcontractor and supplier utilization of 20% of the hard construction cost for the project. There is a total of $604,475, which is 20.65% of disadvantaged minority women, emerging small business subcontractor participation, apportioned as follows. DBE, or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, $276,583, composed of 4 firms providing trucking, traffic control, and saw cutting. There is a minority business enterprise at $319,750, 1 firm performing concrete work. There is an emerging small business, $8,142, performing pest control. Interlochen, Inc. is a State of Oregon certified DBE and WBE owned firm, and as such, the total value to state certified DMW ESB firms is approximately 80%. Because the prime contractor has met the aspirational goal of 20% or more, we did not ask them to be here for this presentation. Interlochen, Inc. they are located in Fairview, Oregon. They have a current business, City of Portland business tax registration number, and they're in full compliance with the city's contracting requirements. If the council has any questions relative to the procurement itself, I can answer those. We do have Ruben Gonzalez and Emily Short from BES in chambers to answer specific project questions if they're needed. That's my report.
Very good. Excellent report. Thank you. Please call the roll.
A motion to accept the report?
I need a motion, sorry.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
More good work on the disadvantaged minority businesses. Thank you very much. Aye.
We'll keep swinging at it.
Wheeler.
I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Report's accepted. 682, please.
Ratify a letter of agreement with the District Council of Trade Unions to authorize a 4% wage increase to each step of the Water Bureau Operating Engineer 3 classification.
Colleagues, Commissioner Fish asked that I read this introductory statement. This ordinance will ratify a letter of agreement with the city and the District Council of Trade Unions. Jamal Anthony, Labor Relations Coordinator from the Office of Human Resources, and Danny Allison, Water Operations and Support Manager from the Portland Water Bureau, will give a presentation of the agreement.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to see you all again.
Thank you.
Based on the size and complexity of its water system, the City of Portland has long been classified as a Level 4 distribution center by the state of Oregon. The Portland Water Bureau has historically asked that its operating engineer 3s have a Level 2 water distribution certification. A person with a Level 2 water distribution certification can make decisions for population groups of 1,501 to 15,000 citizens. In the past, employees who have obtained their Level 3 and Level 4 water distribution cert would receive a 3% premium for reaching Level 3 and a 4% premium for reaching Level 4. the current, to better suit the needs of the Bureau, in February 2017, Portland Water Bureau changed the requirements of the OE3 classification, stating that employees in this position would now have to have a level 3, increased from level 2 certification, which allows an employee to make decisions for population groups 15,001 to 50,000, and is more in line with the needs of the city. To match the increase in both decision-making and level of responsibility, the city seeks to agree to increase the rate of pay for the OE classification by 4%. Lastly, the 3% premium that was formerly attached for having a level 3 certification would go away, and the employees who have a level 4 will now receive 3% premium versus the 4% that they received in the past. Do you all have any questions?
So going from level 1 to a level 2 does not get a 4% premium or increase in pay? This is only for level 3 and above, or am I getting that right? Or?
Yeah, so the minimum certification level for the OE3 position is a distribution 2. And so the premium levels currently would be for distribution 3 or distribution 4. So this change would make the premium only for distribution 4.
Is it fair to characterize this, and I don't want to be too general, this is getting at some of the discrepancy between the private sector around engineering talent, is that correct? In terms of recruiting and maintaining employees?
No, actually, our management's thought process on this is that the operating engineer group is a very small group responsible for the overall operation and 24/7 operations of our control center and basically water system as a whole. And so this was our attempt to increase their decision-making capacity as far as the state regulations are concerned, and better use our resources.
Very good, thank you. Colleagues, any further questions before we open this up for public testimony? Is there anybody signed up, Carla, for public testimony?
Yes, I have 2 people.
Very good.
Mimi Gurman and Charles Bridgecrane.
Come on up. Gentlemen, if you just want to cool your heels for a couple of minutes, we'll take public testimony.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we just switch seats and then Mimi can come up.
Charles, you need to turn that on so it got turned off. There. Thank you.
Green button, and perfect. So, good morning, distinguished commissioners. It's good to be in front of you here on World Refugee Day, UN declared World Refugee Day, where millions of people around the world are having much greater water problems than we face here in Portland. When we talk about getting more fair market rate compensation for our water engineers, I think we need to be mindful, and hopefully there's even been some internal discussion in the Water Bureau about the blooming algae and the cyano bloom down around Salem, and a loss of public confidence really in government. So I hope that while we give these people market rate pay, we also make sure that the skill set and the public transparency is in place for citizens to still be thrilled with our Bull Run water, which of course you're going to mix less and less well-field water with that awesome Bull Run water. Water is, of course, also an issue for people that are facing immigrant detention. Hopefully our president is flip-flopping again, and you'll be able to refrain from sending any police forces down there to the ICE prison detention center on South McAdam. We can all live in peace and quench our thirst. So, but I do think that even though this 4% pay raise, whenever we have a market adjustment pay rate, we want to make sure that the DCTU, which usually does a great job, has also been able to get all its other represented classes up to good pay. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Good morning.
Hi, I want to acknowledge also World Refugee Day, and to all of the people who are at Occupation ICE PDX. They, fortunately, this morning the message was that they are all good on the waterfront, but they do need other supplies. And one of the things that I have to say is that I want to be sure that our sanctuary city is not using our police force here, our money from Portland, to go to the police to work for ICE over at the detention center. They need to be removed regardless of the Tesla property that's in the back or anywhere else, that our police in the sanctuary city cannot work with ICE, and that we need to abolish ICE from Portland, from Oregon. Maybe you could speak to the governor and say Portland no longer has any use of ICE or for that building, and we could open that building up for actual houseless people on the streets who need housing, turn it into apartments, and we would have a new building that we could use for a much more humanitarian purpose, including good pipes for good water. So that's really what I wanted to testify to today, to say that we need to make sure that our sanctuary city is not using any of our money for police efforts to support ICE, and that we need to abolish ICE from Portland. Can you address that?
I want to stick to the agenda, but I will briefly go off script because I know people want to know my feelings on this, and I'm happy to give them. The current policy being enacted by the federal government around the separation of very small children from their parents is an abomination. It is very un-American. And I'm glad to see, as was mentioned earlier, the president seems to be reconsidering this very ill-conceived policy. And so I hope that happens forthwith. I drove by the demonstration yesterday. It seemed to be very peaceful. And I was pleased to see that. And I want to be very clear. I do not want the Portland Police Bureau to be engaged or sucked into a conflict, particularly from a federal agency that I believe is on the wrong track, that has not fully lived American values of inclusion, and is also an agency where the former head suggested that people who lead cities that are sanctuary cities like this one should be arrested. So if they're looking for a bailout from this mayor, they're looking in the wrong place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Any further discussion on this item or questions? Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you for your great work on that. Next item, 683 from the Housing Bureau.
683, direct the Portland Housing Bureau to create an expungement pilot program to reduce barriers and increase access to housing opportunities.
Colleagues, we know that a criminal record can serve as a permanent barrier to housing, employment, and other opportunities. We also know that as many as 100 million U.S. adults, nearly 1/3 of our entire population, have a criminal record of some kind or other. Additionally, we can't ignore the disproportionate impact that interactions with the justice system has on marginalized communities. In an effort to increase Portlanders' ability to access our historic investments in housing and the increasing economic opportunities being created in our communities, this is an important step forward. The Portland Housing Bureau is aiming to pilot an expungement program aiming to help residents who are eligible to having their records expunged access these services. Here to discuss the details of the ordinance are Cupid Alexander. He is a senior policy advisor to me as mayor. Victoria James, who's a senior policy analyst in the Portland Housing Bureau. And Juhi Agarwal, who's an attorney with the Metropolitan Public Defenders. Welcome, and thank you all for being here today.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good
morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Cupid Alexander. I am one of the senior policy advisors in the office of Mayor Ted Wheeler. Over the past few years, the city has mobilized its resources to achieve record levels of affordable housing production. With the recent addition of the housing bond and other revenue sources to support increased affordable housing development, there is every indication that this trend will continue. As we continue this level of investment in creating more affordable housing, who will be able to access the housing is the pressing equity question we still must address. As the mayor mentioned, nearly 1/3 of Americans have a criminal record of some sort. These records carry long long-term collateral consequences. Just an arrest alone with no conviction can appear on a background check and create barriers to accessing housing, education, employment, receiving a license, and even volunteering opportunities. It is impossible to ignore the disproportionate impact this has on marginalized communities. Oregon maintains the 7th highest African American incarceration rate in the country. And in Multnomah County, African Americans currently represent just under 6% of residents, but 27% of the inmate population. Through intensive outreach work during the application process for the preference policy, for example, the Housing Bureau has had the opportunity to hear directly from community members about the barriers they face to accessing housing. Among the concerns they have shared is the fear that something in either their background or a family member's background may prevent them from being eligible for housing or from being able to live together. Increasing access to expungement services can help mitigate the impacts of past criminal justice involvement to applicants for city housing and programs. While there is a growing general awareness around the city's resources for those who have been impacted by cannabis laws, as well as efforts through other government entities to expand expungement services to youth and families, we know many families who interact with the housing services we provide continue to face these barriers due to their histories. It's important to create a point by which those eligible for some kind of relief can access these services. To take us through how the expungement process works, I will hand it off to Victoria James from the Portland Housing Bureau and Juhi Agarwal from Metropolitan Defenders.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and
Good morning.
commissioners. Carla is pulling up my PowerPoint here. Yay. All right, so I will just be kind of clarifying what an expungement is and sort of how that process works. And then if you have specific questions, we're all going to look at Juhi at the same time because she's going to be the expert on any specific questions you might have. So what is an expungement? An expungement is a motion to set aside a conviction or a record of arrest. And once that expungement is approved, it officially kind of seals off any record of that case, and it is inaccessible without a further order from the court. To get an expungement, a person needs to make a motion with the county circuit court or a municipal court in the area at which they were convicted or arrested. So for instance, if you have an arrest with the Portland Housing Bureau, you're going to need to file a motion with the Multnomah County Circuit Court. The expungement process essentially has 3 steps. Step 1 is that a person needs to file a motion and an affidavit to the court. Step 2, the district attorney will receive a copy of that motion, and then they have the opportunity to object. In the event that they object the expungement, the applicant is informed, and then the applicant has the chance to request a hearing. If they go through with that hearing, the court basically hears the case and rules on it. At that time, the applicant may be represented. If the district attorney does not object to the expungement, the applicant still receives a notice of that decision, and thereafter the court mails them the order setting aside the conviction or the arrest record, which essentially means they have been expunged. That arrest or that crime has been expunged. After an applicant files the paperwork to request the motion for expungement, it's sort of up to the district attorney how long that process is going to take, but generally, if the district attorney is objecting or not objecting, it's around 4 to 6 months for an applicant to know that decision. A person is eligible for expungement 3 years after that initial judgment. They are eligible for expungement if they have no other convictions in the last 10 years, if they have fully complied with and performed the sentence of the court, and if they have no pending charges. There are a couple of things that cannot be expunged off the record, and generally that is A and B felonies, and A and B felonies are the most serious types of felonies, so it'd be aggravated assault, manslaughter, that kind of thing. Convictions for traffic crimes of any level are also not eligible for any sort of expungement, and pretty much every sex crime, elder abuse, and child abuse crime is not going to be eligible for expungement. And that is expungement in a nutshell.
Any questions?
So I understand that the Metropolitan Public Defender has also received a grant through the city's cannabis tax program. How will this program interact with that one, or will it?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Fritz, and to the mayor and the rest of the commissioners. For the record, my name is Juhi Agarwal, and I'm an attorney at Metro Public Defenders in the Community Law Division. We're known for our criminal defense, but in the past few years, we've been working to reduce barriers to folks' to their housing and employment opportunities. With the recent award of the cannabis grant, we will be working to find the folks who have marijuana-related crimes on their record and working to expunge them. And we're hoping that the outreach pieces of both that grant and this funding can be used together to reach the communities most impacted by marijuana crime, cannabis criminalization, and that for folks with eligible crimes, they'll be able to work with the attorney funded under that grant, and if they don't have a crime eligible to be funded under that grant, they can work with the attorney funded under this program.
And presumably, if they're getting expunged for a cannabis crime, that same attorney can work on any other eligible expungements at the same time?
Correct. The process required is that the attorney does the analysis under Oregon state law to determine what crimes may or may not be eligible, or dismissals, and then files the motions with the court.
Thank you. And how many people do you hope to be able to help with this allocation?
With this program, we're hoping to make outreach to at least 300 households, and then hoping to provide services to as many of those as possible.
Great, thank you.
We also have some invited testimony with Ian Davey, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Home Forward, who also uses Metropolitan Public Defender to help some of their clients.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Ian Davey, Chief Operating Officer at Home Forward. And I want to talk a little bit about a prior role I had as legal aid attorney in New York City, and just tell a quick story from that. I was fortunate to represent Miss Allie Walton at one point. Miss Walton grew up in the Jim Crow South. Like many African-American families at that time, they immigrated to the Northeast for opportunities. She remembers and recalled to me getting on a train in Athens, Georgia, and getting off at Penn Station in Midtown, New York. She eventually resided in public housing in the Patterson houses in the South Bronx, and she lived there and still lives there for well over 40 years. She recalled the Betances houses being built back when the federal government took the novel approach of investing in public housing. She recalls when the Morrisania Air Rights houses went up, when the Andrew Jackson houses went up. And she told me that she could tell the age of a development based on how tall the maples were. Were they small saplings, or were they nearly as tall as the 15th, 16th story? And then, after over 40 years of an unblemished tenancy, she received an eviction notice and ended up in my office. And that notice was because her grandson, 19 years old, had pled guilty to 2 possession of marijuana charges. Not on property, not within her apartment, miles away from her apartment. He didn't reside in the residence, but he had received mail at the residence, and the New York City Housing Authority thought that was a reason to evict Miss Walton. Now, we were able to save her tenancy, but this really stood out to me as a stark example of the collateral consequences of involvement with the criminal justice system. And we know that those don't just hit housing, they hit immigration, they hit employment, they hit the child welfare system. And we also know that there are disparities, that they affect people of color disproportionately, and that they plague people for years, for decades. And so I want to just say that at Home Forward, we thought a little bit differently about our role as a housing authority, tried to focus a little bit more on what it would be like to partner with a social justice agency like Metropolitan Public Defenders. Jacqueline Eaton from our office developed a program that focused on a few primary goals: people being able to access our housing, people being able to move to opportunity neighborhoods, and ultimately people being able to depart our housing, to move into the private market, to move into unsubsidized housing, to have the opportunities to do so. And these approaches have been very successful. Metropolitan Public Defenders, with our funding, has served over 1,000 unduplicated individuals, and nearly 70% of those are people of color. This is a success. These are not approaches that traditionally come to mind when you think of a housing authority, but in my view, these are the steps that matter, that address historical inequities, that impact current disparities, and I urge your support of these initiatives. Thank you.
Very good. Is there any public testimony on this item?
Yes, we
Very
have
good.
3 people signed up.
Very good.
Mary Seif, Shedrick J. Wilkins, and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Is it morning?
I just want to say that I strongly support this. I think it's a great pilot program. I hope it's so successful that it just spreads all over. You know, with the work that I'm doing now with Oregon Harbor of Hope and really focusing on some of the issues of trying to get people into permanent housing, people that live on the streets, many of the things that we do in the privacy of our homes, because they live their lives in public, they can do the same things, and yet it's a crime, and they can be arrested for it. And that's just another barrier for them getting into housing. One of the things that I've noticed in the affordable project that I live in is that they have completely revamped their eligibility in the last couple of years because we have a 4-year waiting list. They can be very selective now. And they just blanketly, if you don't have 2 years worth of rental history, if you have $1,000 or more in delinquent debt, if you have any kind of criminal background record whatsoever, it's just automatically you don't qualify. You can't begin to get there. So I think this is a great program, and I really strongly support it, and I hope that it will become kind of a part of every shelter that we have in the city at some point, so that they have the ability within the shelter to bring somebody in and do this. I know I helped a friend of mine who, when she was very destitute, she got arrested 3 times for shoplifting, and I helped her go through the expungement process, and it was daunting. So I support this.
Yeah, I'm Shedrick J. Wilkins, and I support this also because I think that marijuana was passed on the West Coast recently, Washington State 2012, Oregon 2014, and California. So it's kind of this medical idea, and a lot of people were involved with marijuana when it was illegal, but it wasn't really that bad. So there's a lot of stuff there that people are persecuted when they were involving making a little money off of something that eventually became legal anyway. It's like bootlegging in the 1920s. So it's important to recognize that. On housing, if you don't see me around here at City Hall, I prefer the governor, Kate Brown, is an urban Democrat from Southeast Portland. And I prefer her re-election over Newt Buchner, who lives in Bend, which I don't know is an urban society, or something like that. It's probably a truck stop to go to the east part of the country. But she lives, she sees people. And on some of these issues too, on June 14th, I went to the Democratic Party of Multnomah County, and it was packed. Trump's got a lot of people, Kate Brown's got an army, because Trump's got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. So I want to help her. If you don't see me around, I'm doing that, helping Governor Kate Brown get reelected, who's an urban Democrat, and her opponent is a rural Republican, where there's less housing issues.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Charles Bridgecrane Johnson, for the record. And I think the first and maybe most important point I want to bring up about this, in light of the other testimony we had earlier today on 664, is intersectionality. We did have a very clear expression of how there's a disproportionate impact for people of color and our black neighbors. This specifically was mentioned that somehow in a county or a city metropolitan area where only 6% of the people are black, we're incarcerating them at a rate of 27%. Another group that this initiative needs to interact with is people with disabilities. Only this year did we have a deaf person run for seat on city council, but there's probably an unknown number of people that have physical and cognitive issues that have been caught up in the criminal justice system. Back before the former treasurer of Oregon became our mayor and Ms. Udaley came here, some of our city council crafted a citizens review committee for police and put a former prosecuting attorney on there. My interactions with that former prosecutor from Michigan have gotten me to meet some of the women of the justice system. First, Judge Rita Cobb Batts, then Judge Immergut signed a warrant for me. Today I got to meet Judge Kathleen Daly, and this is for a white guy splashing a cup of water on a white guy, 2 years of criminal justice process now. So it's great to see that the Housing Bureau is finally going to be able to work with the defenders to really correct over-enforcement mistakes of the past. You know, we're talking about expungement, but when we talk about them, we really need to say those were bad public policy decisions, and we need to make sure that we're also not repeating them. While we fund the expungement, we need to continue to work with Chief Outlaw and a vision for a more responsive, more community-based policing so that less and less people will ever have to deal with the crazy, time-consuming, resource-consuming system of expungement. Those resources should be better channeled, less into the judicial system, more money for Home Forward and for the Housing Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any further discussion before I call the roll? Please call the roll on the resolution.
Saltzman?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Housing Bureau, for bringing forward this pilot. And I think it's a very important thing that we figure this out, how we can help more of our residents keep or get into housing. Aye.
Udaley?
Well, I'm keenly interested in this issue, and I'm grateful that the mayor's office has recognized the urgent need to evaluate how criminal histories are preventing people from accessing permanent housing. Expunging records as part of increasing access to housing is a key element and complement to the work that we're doing in my office around housing discrimination and tenant protections. Our office, in collaboration with Commissioner Fritz's office, helped lead a grant process with last year's cannabis tax allocation that just awarded an additional $120,000 specifically to expunge cannabis records. In addition, our office has been working on a screening criteria proposal for over a year, and we've done a tremendous amount of work around improving the use of federally required individualized assessments so that criminal histories can't be used as a blanket prohibition to housing. So far, we've worked with 23 community partners and held 17 community workshops and presentations, including the landlord industry, to develop a draft that accomplishes the goal of access to housing in an innovative and objective way that is fair and equitable for renters as well as landlords. We still have 13 upcoming organizational and partner workshops scheduled to continue the work this summer, and would greatly appreciate the collaboration of the mayor's office as well as any of my colleagues who wish to engage. I vote aye.
Fritz?
I'm really happy that this augments the funding that is available through the cannabis tax allocation. It's been an honor to work with Commissioner Udaley on that process, and I'm glad that this allocation will expand the number of offences that can be assisted on something so basic that if you're eligible for this program, you need the resources to be able to do it, which then makes the rest of your life so much easier to navigate. So thank you very much to everybody involved. Aye.
Wheeler?
I want to thank Shannon Callahan, the Interim Housing Bureau Director, Matthew Scheibold and Victoria James over at the Housing Bureau, Cupid Alexander on my team, and Kyle Chiswick, who is also on my team to help craft a pilot program that aims to increase the access that Portlanders have and connecting them to the necessary resources. Additionally, I'd like to thank Home Forward for coming to the council to share their successes with a similar program. I want to thank my colleagues for the great work that they are doing around this. I vote aye. The resolution is adopted. Colleagues, I'd like to dice this up a little bit in terms of the path forward. I promised Commissioner Fritz the other day that we'll take a poll at 12:30 to see what people are feeling like in terms of either moving forward or setting items aside. So think on that for the next 10 minutes. I'd like to do Commissioner Udaley's item, which is item number, where did I see it here? 687 next. I'd like to follow that with item 671 because I see AC Davis is sitting over there and I need to get him on the road. I would like to take up the 4/5 item, which is a multi-project after that, and then hopefully we can get through those quickly, and then let's see where we are as a council if we want to continue or hold these other items over. So please, Carla, if you could do 687 next, I'd appreciate it.
687,
Yes,
amend
please.
fee schedule for the Office of Neighborhood Involvement Noise Program.
Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor. The noise program located in the Office of Neighborhood Involvement is responsible for managing the city's noise regulations. Today's council action, which has been approved unanimously by the Noise Review Board, is to increase noise fees by 5%. These fees are not intended to provide full cost recovery, but are critical to our ability to enforce Title 18 noise regulations. I'd like to introduce our noise officer, Paul Van Orden, to walk us through this item.
Thank you, members of the council. Paul Van Orden, the city's noise control officer. Today before us is a standard increase in our fees by 5%. This is pretty traditional for the noise office. We have explored higher fees in the recent past, but right now we're just sticking with a basic 5% increase in our fees. There is one notable item that folks should take a look at, which is our administrative review fees had previously been, in some cases, higher than our actual citation fees for people to review cases, and so we have lowered those down to a more reasonable rate of $25 from previously $250. So that is the only notable change that we have before us. This set of changes was reviewed at the last Noise Review Board meeting, and the Noise Review Board members did not have any challenges or concerns with what's before us at this time. And we expect that in the next several years, the Noise Office will be exploring additional changes that may be higher than this, but at this time, we are really just bringing forward a standard 5% fee increase from our fees last year, in the last fiscal year. And it's a pretty straightforward proposal on the table. Not sure if council members have any specific questions.
Commissioner Saltzman.
I mean, I don't have a question about the fees, but since you're here, we have had quite a discussion a few months ago from many of our residents about pile driving.
Yes.
And I was under the impression you had prepared some rules.
Yes.
That were acceptable to both the construction industry and certainly the residents. And
Yes.
these rules haven't come to us. So where are they and why not?
Yes, so on the question of pile driving, the Noise Review Board is comfortable with changing the standards in our code that require, or that have previously not required a specific decibel level for pile driving. And the board wants to move forward with removing an exemption from pile driving to require that pile driving comes before the city's Noise Review Board. And management in ONI and the city's noise staff have looked at the situation. There are so few pile driving projects that what we want to do is bring back to council in the fall a proposal that clearly has the industry on board, because at this point, the industry is trying to abate the sound and fix the challenge. And what they want to do is work hand in hand with the city's noise office and the Office of Neighborhood Involvement so that we're all on the same page about where we're going with the project. So we will be coming back to council, we anticipate, in the fall. We only anticipate at best one project that could potentially start between now and the fall in the Pearl. So the number of pile driving projects that actually happen in the city are quite small. And we have worked collaboratively with that industry, even without the regulations having changed. So the management in ONI and the city's noise office do not feel that in our busy season or with all the other things on the plate to serve all of the citizens in the city of Portland, that making the changes at this point is the most prudent thing to do when we're already headed in that direction. So we'd be looking to actually make the formal changes in the fall. In worst case scenario, if the one project comes into fruition, we feel confident that we would be able to work with the developers and do the same thing that we did for the Hoyt Street Properties project that impacted one of the kindergarten classes and schools down in the Pearl. So we're comfortable that we're not going to have any significant issues between now and when we present the project to council.
And so when you do present in the fall, it will basically make sure that pile driving projects do fall under the purview of the Noise Review Board.
Yes, and what we anticipate is, much like we've done with leaf blowers and other pieces of equipment, there'd be a phase-in period where we would propose coming back to council once a year for the first year or two, just to make sure that everything we're doing is working. So we would remove it from the exemption, report each year to council on how it's going, and then possibly even formalize specific methodologies for abatement at that point.
Very good. Is there any public testimony on the amendment to the fee schedule specifically?
Yes, we have one person, Mary
Very good.
Sipe.
Come on up.
Should I sit down or is it?
You can just stay there, just Mary. She might have a follow-up question. One of us might. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Oops. Yeah, it is afternoon, isn't it? I oppose this request. Simply increasing the fees by 5% every year does not adequately address the inequities in the structure of the fee schedule. Last year, I testified about the April 2016 proposed permit fee schedule revision that was projected to generate as much as $90,000 in increased revenue for the noise program and assess fees more equitably. I also told you how after outreach to stakeholders and special public meeting, the proposed fee schedules seemed to be moving forward, but then in August, the Noise Control Office advised City Council that they would simply propose a nominal increase of 15% to the existing schedule. That was in August of 2016. No explanation was ever given as to why the changes to the structure of the fee schedule were not included. On an August 23, 2016 email from Kathy Couch advised stakeholders, quote, "This fall, the Noise Office will be conducting a tracking study to present to City Council in the spring of 2017, identifying actual time staff costs that are associated with the variance process. The noise program is interested in exploring new and creative ways to increase funding the Noise Control Office." My question is, was that study ever conducted? Was anything done with it? I'm not aware of any results of the study being presented to City Council. Are you? City Council should deny this request and direct the Noise Control Office to report to you the results of that study and what new and creative ways they plan to increase funding for the Noise Control Office. The current structure of the fee schedule greatly favors construction, which is currently the most disruptive and widespread noise in our city. And as you'll see, I did some PowerPoint slides, and as you'll see, I can share those with you, Paul. For the motor vehicle racing, the annual Labor Day vintage car races, they pay a total for a 3-year variance of $5,465. This comes to approximately $600 per day for their total of 9 days racing. Now, a construction noise variance permit for, say, 30 early morning concrete pours, which is not unusual. The way the fee structure the way the fees are structured, they have a maximum of $1,080 for a 12-month period. So they can do 30 pours in a 12-month period, and it comes out to $36 a day. Now, if pile driving required a noise variance permit, a 55-day project like the Block 20 would have cost approximately $19 per day. But then, as we all know, it doesn't require a noise variance permit, but hopefully it soon will. So with the current fee schedule structure, the more days that a construction project makes noise, the less they pay per day. This doesn't make sense. It seems to me that if we're going to give variance permits, we should be charging a fee for each day that they make noise. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And Commissioner Saltzman, did you have a question?
No.
Very good. So any further questions, colleagues, before I move this to second?
I just would like to say in response, I would support some changes and more cost recovery at the Commissioner in Charge's direction.
I'm certainly interested in cost recovery. However, I think there's some obvious reasons why we wouldn't charge as much to a construction project as we would to a racetrack at a time when we're trying to incentivize building as much housing as possible. It's just kind of apples and oranges situation, but
The racetrack has their own noise meters. They do most of their own enforcement. They also pay into a fund.
That's not a correct statement.
Mary, it's not a debate. You
Yeah,
gave your
anyhow,
testimony and I'm
yeah.
responding. Thank you.
Thank you.
And obviously, I know from my experience, it's a lot more complicated than it might seem.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I'll take your lead.
Thank you.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you all for that. So per my promise to Commissioner Fritz, I'd like to just take a breather for a second. Colleagues, what I would propose is 671. It is an emergency ordinance, and we've got AC Davis cooling his heels. I'd like to do the 4/5 item, which is a multi-project. As you know, those are required to come to the City Council before we can execute. We have a couple of second readings that we can dispose of quickly. The BES has informed me that 684, they have invited testimony that's been sitting here patiently, so I'm hopeful we could get to that. 685, if necessary, they said they could move that, but it's not a long item. What is your will?
Why don't we just get started and see how long it looks like it's going to take?
All right.
I'd like to leave by 1.
Absolutely.
I'd like to wrap this up by 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a
I agree with
long,
that.
we had a long Wednesday last week, and I think we all agreed that the wall-to-wall really robbed the afternoon of some of the energy and the consideration that it should have had. So 8 hours straight just doesn't work. So with that, we will then move to 671, please, Carla.
671, create a new represented classification of public safety support specialist and establish an interim compensation rate for this classification.
Very good. And colleagues, I'll probably say most of what needs to be said on this. The public safety support specialist positions are foundational to my and Chief Outlaw's vision of a community-centered police bureau. These positions are also foundational to the community's vision of the police bureau in recognition of the fact that police officers are not always necessary for every type of call. The role of the Public Safety Support Specialist, or PS3, is to respond to non-emergency calls for services that don't require a sworn officer. This position was first called a Community Service Officer, but the position name has been changed to better reflect the goals of the position, which are to enhance public safety service and community engagement for the public. Among other duties, public safety support specialists will respond to non-injury traffic collisions. If you get into a fender bender or your car breaks down, PS3s will be dispatched to provide immediate aid. They will also be made available for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other community members in need of assistance. They will follow up on property crimes where there's no suspect information, placing an emphasis on victims' rights. These specialists will attend your neighborhood meetings and community events. They will respond, as I said, to pedestrians, bicyclists, and other community members in need of basic assistance where a sworn officer is not always needed. The public safety support specialist will ultimately increase the bandwidth of sworn officers and better enable the Bureau to engage in a community policing model. They will support sworn officers by taking some of the administrative duties currently done by sworn officers. This is a pilot program, so we're initially planning to deploy 12 PS3s with the intention of growing that number as the success of the program is assessed through data. I'm excited about the opportunity this presents for the Portland Police Bureau. Thank you to the Portland Police Association for collaborating with us on what this program will ultimately look like. I'm looking forward to the first appointment of public safety support specialists. AC Davis, welcome and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
I don't really have anything to add to that, but I'm here, and Elizabeth Nunes is here from the Bureau of Human Resources. I don't know if she has anything, but I'm here for any questions that you might have.
Colleagues, any particular questions on this item? Seeing none, is there any public testimony on this item?
I didn't have a sign-up sheet. This was pulled from consent.
I was just curious how the number of 12 was arrived at. Is that, there's some magic to having 12 people, public safety support specialists, versus 24 or?
That decision was made before I got involved in this, so I'm not sure, but I can try to track that down.
I know where it came from. It was budget resource.
Yeah, that's what was budgeted.
I guess, but.
Yeah, there was no magic to it, but 12 is, of course, an ancient number seeped in history. Very good. Seeing no public testimony, please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Well, I appreciate the clarification around the name and the function of these positions. There's been a lot of confusion in the community, and I think inside the building. There's also been a lot of anticipation in the community. I'm hoping that this goes well and that we bring on board many more than 12, because I'm quite certain that we are overloading our officers with work that could be delegated to delegated. I just made up a word.
It's a good one.
I have to make up the meaning now, but delegated to non-sworn staff. I vote aye.
Fritz?
I'm very glad that the Chief Outlaw and Mayor Wheeler are supportive of this program. As some will remember, Commissioner Fish, Mayor Hales, and I took considerable grief from the community about the contract that we approved for the Portland Police Association, which specified that these positions would be allowed. I'm grateful that they have worked with staff, with Human Resources, not only to define what these positions will do, but also to make sure that there isn't any overlap with the park rangers. We did not want our rangers to be headhunted to these better paying positions, but I'm satisfied that the job descriptions are really different and that our park rangers will want to stay being park rangers because that's what they really excel at. So I'm glad that we're finally getting it going. A little bit disappointed that the starting age is 21, but I think having the probationary period being 12 months is definitely the right choice if we could only have one or the other. Because, as we all know, we need people out on the streets as soon as possible, helping Portlanders when trouble arises. So thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate your continuing to push this. I also want to thank Tim Crail, my Chief of Staff, who at every single meeting with any Portland Police Chief or Mayor has raised this issue, and I'm very happy to see it started. Aye.
Wheeler?
It takes about 1.5 to 2 years to certify and properly train a police officer. And it's pretty obvious that you do not need a sworn armed police officer to go to every kind of circumstance in the community. So I believe this will serve both the function of enhancing community connectedness and community trust with our police bureau, and it will address some of the fiscal issues facing the police bureau, including the overtime costs. So I'm certainly enthusiastic about this. I'm glad we're getting it going. Thank you, AC Davis, for your hard work on this. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you for your patience as well. Next up, the 4/5 item, 688-1.
Approve application under the Multiple Unit Limited Tax Exemption Program under the Inclusionary Housing Program for the project 5434 Southeast Milwaukee, located at 5434 Southeast Milwaukee Avenue.
Colleagues, this apartment building, 5334 Southeast Milwaukee, will make all 28 units affordable households earning up to 60% of the area median income for 99 years as part of the inclusionary housing program. The project itself is subject to inclusionary housing requirements, and it will be a receiving site for another project that is also subject to inclusionary housing. In addition, this project has voluntarily opted to provide the rest of its units as IH units, restricted at 60% of area median family income for 99 years. All units in both buildings are proposed as studios, and therefore all the IH units will also be studios. The owners, Main Street Development Incorporated, are building a total of 28 new units in this project and are also the owners of the building at 5605 Southeast Milwaukee, which has 30 total proposed new units. The multiple unit limited tax exemption or multi-program is one of the financial incentives provided to inclusionary housing projects choosing to make units affordable rather than paying the fee in lieu. Each multi-application comes before the City Council for approval. In addition to the 10-year tax exemption provided by the multi, this project will receive an exemption of the affordable housing construction excise tax and system development charges that otherwise would have been due on the affordable units. This project will join the other 32 private sector projects in the inclusionary housing permit approval pipeline. Again, 32 private sector projects in the inclusionary housing permit approval pipeline, making a minimum of 177 units affordable in otherwise market rate developments. We have Interim Director Shannon Callahan here to answer any questions or add any further commentary.
Thank you, Mayor. Shannon Callahan here to answer any questions.
Very good. Any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Sounds very good. Aye.
Udaly?
Great, thanks. Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
I want to thank everybody who worked super hard on this. Cupid Alexander in my office, everybody in the Housing Bureau, all of my colleagues, particularly Commissioner Saltzman and Fritz, who helped lay the foundation for this very good program. I vote aye. Good teamwork, everybody. Thank you. Next item, I believe it is 684.
Authorized grant agreement awarding up to $73,000 in fiscal year 18-19 to Southwest Neighborhoods, Inc. to provide outreach, technical assistance, and community involvement for watershed projects in Portland's West Side sub-watersheds.
Colleagues, Commissioner Fish asked that I read this brief opening statement. The Southwest Watershed Resource Center at Southwest Neighborhoods, Inc. has been providing technical assistance and outreach services for watershed programs since 1999, and this grant agreement will continue that good work. Becky Tilson, Environmental Program Manager from the Bureau of Environmental Services, will present an overview of the grant. Good afternoon.
Hi, thanks so much for having us. I'm going to just hit a few key points, and then I want to give most of the time here to our invited testimony members of the public. Like he said, I'm Becky Tilson with the Bureau of Environmental Services. So kind of big picture, the Watershed Resource Center provides technical assistance and grant support and other sorts of support to the community. Their mission is to inspire awareness and action on behalf of watershed health in Southwest Portland neighborhoods. BES recognizes that partnering with private property owners and assisting with their restoration efforts in Southwest Portland is critical to meeting our watershed health goals and our permit requirements. And the Watershed Resource Center enables us to have an exponentially larger reach in the community than our current staffing levels would allow. So here's an overview of what the program provides, and you'll hear a lot more from these folks in a second. Again, I'm gonna just kind of buzz through this. Southwest Portland has some unique watershed characteristics that call for this sort of support in this region, and the Watershed Resource Center provides sort of a critical key part of the network of organizations and groups, including BES, that are providing services around stormwater management and watershed health in Southwest Portland. The budget is $73,000. It's included here. The breakdown of the budget is included in your ordinance packet. It's included in BES's budget for this year, and the work plan is also included in your ordinance packet. So again, that's a super brief version of my presentation, but I want to give Michelle Mahan here and Vicki McNamara an opportunity to speak. So thank you for having us, squeezing us in under the wire.
Very good.
Good afternoon, I suppose, at this point. I'm Michelle Mahan. My husband, Brian, and I were one of 4 households in the Southwest neighborhood to receive a Stormwater Stars grant. I'm truly grateful to have the opportunity to come here today and share with you what an incredibly remarkable resource it is that we have this in our neighborhood. Hillary, Lorena, and Sylvia out of the Sweeney office have been just incredible. They have boundless energy, they have enthusiasm for the project, and that's been incredible and contagious to all of us around them. Not only do they have this wonderful enthusiasm, but their knowledge is limitless as well. And they've shared that with me. And in particular, 5 of the key practices that I've learned that are a part of the Stormwater Stars project enable the community to limit the runoff of water and thereby preventing water pollution in our community. The practices improve the infiltration of water on site, and they really limit these damaging overland flows. In our site in particular, in our yard, we were able to remove a amount of grass. We were able to do quite a bit of native planting. We were able to amend the soil, touching on 3 of those 5 practices. And since the project came to our site, an understanding of what we can do to improve that watershed has encouraged us to remove additional hard surfaces, to put in permeable pathways, to look at use of container plantings. And those have been a wonderful asset that we really were unaware of prior to this project. Beyond the fact that we have a beautiful section of our yard now, the other remarkable thing is that we've really seen a community coming together around these ideas. We were able to canvass the neighborhood, share these ideas in our community. On the day of the site, we were able to bring in a lot of people who in turn have become new advocates from the program. And since then, our neighbors have continued to come and ask, how's it going and what's happening, and visiting the site again, which has been quite nice to see. Finally, it is incredible to have a resource in our community that is dedicated to providing a resource to help improve the health of our watershed. And I encourage you to support them in every way possible. They're really making a difference in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Good afternoon. I'm Vicki McNamara, and my husband and I have lived in the Southwest area for over 20 years. And as you know, Southwest Portland is a water haven, a watershed haven, I should say. The Southwest Watershed Resource Center has been involved in multiple projects in the Southwest area, and their expertise in developing and implementing creative and engaging programs for the entire diversity of our community has been outstanding. This past year, WRC was involved in an educational environmental program at Jackson Middle School. Through that program, they engaged over 25 students throughout the year in environmental education being at the core of their work, but also involving the kids in rehabilitation of a trail area that is accessed, and I'll explain that. They were very, very instrumental in engaging our diverse community students in this project and eradicating ivy and blackberry along this well-used trail. In April, they asked community involvement to reconstruct this trail that had become a walkable mud field, what we called our sloppy walking area, to a walkable wood chip trail. It's a trail that comes off of Southwest 39th on the backside, south side of Jackson. If you take a right as a student, you walk about 30 to 40 yards to access Jackson Middle School. If you take a left as an adult, you walk about 50 yards up a hill to Southwest 40th, which then takes you to the Barber Transit Center. So this is a trail that's used by kids and adults in the community as well. It's accessed every day by at least 100 individuals, students and adults alike. Like I said, the trail had become very muddy. WRC was instrumental in getting the wood chips donated and pulling 75 community members, children and families, including the diversity of our Muslim and East African families, to work on an April Saturday and reconstitute the trail with wood chips. So we now have a walkable wood chip trail instead of a sloppy mud trail. And of note, the Father's Day downpour that we had last Sunday, we'd have been back to mud. But on Monday, it was walkable and doable. And we still have neighbors talking about it and asking how it was done. In addition to the work on the trail, they planted 70 new plants along the trail and marked them and identified them along the trail. And the kids on that day made what they called clay rocks. and they dried them and they placed them along the trail, and the community's having a great time moving them around because they're decorated and redecorating the trail every day. So I want to thank kudos to the WRC for their efforts in inclusion and the hard work they did in making this a community effort. And to let you know that they also have fabulous walk-in resources that are free for our neighborhood. They have their free tool library, which I think is a fabulous idea, walk-in resources, the native plant swap, and the workshop water series that you were involved in. Kudos to WRC for all they've done for Southwest neighborhoods. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for being here.
I wish you'd brought pictures.
I should have. They were in the Sweeney newspaper. They were some great ones.
Oh, I
I have a copy for you here, but
Oh, there
this
we
is
go.
the sort of prep day at Jackson Middle School up here on the screen.
That's great.
They had a blast.
I like weeding. I can't keep a plant alive to save my life, but I'd be happy to come help you rip
We have lots of
some out.
volunteer
You're
Yeah.
welcome to come anytime you like.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Is there any
Thank
public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one else signed up.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Next item, 685, and then after that, we just have a couple of second readings.
685, authorized contract with Tetra Tech, Inc. to provide engineering services for the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant main substation replacement project, number E10897, in the amount of $650,630.
This ordinance will authorize a contract to provide engineering services for the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant main substation replacement. Paul Sudo and Clarence Thompson from the Bureau of Environmental Services will give a brief presentation about this project.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. Clarence will run through the presentation quickly. Paul Sudo with BES.
So okay, here we go. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. For the record, I am Clarence Thompson, engineer with BES, and here with me today is Paul Sudo, principal engineer with BES. The purpose of our presentation today is to request approval of the ordinance to authorize a contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated to provide engineering services for the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant main substation replacement project. This slide provides a picture of the project location. The map on the left shows the location of the treatment plant on Columbia Boulevard. The aerial photo on the right shows the location of the substation on the treatment plant property. The main substation is a primary electric power interface between PGE, which is Portland General Electric, and the treatment plant. This is a picture of the exterior of the main substation. An electrical substation takes power from a utility or point of electric supply and distributes it to the circuits of a facility by means of switches, also known as circuit breakers, which control the flow of power to various parts of the facility. The substation at our plant was built during the 1970s. It is a critical component of the main 12,000 volt or 12 kV power distribution system for the entire plant. It is the primary facility to receive power from PGE and distribute that power across the plant. Failure of this substation could cause a plant outage that would last 6 to 8 weeks. Because the substation is so old, it is becoming unsafe for plant staff to perform routine maintenance on the substation while it is energized. This requires extra coordination with PGE in order to work safely. This slide shows a picture of the inside of the main 15 kV switchgear house, which is part of the substation. And on the left, you can see the circuit breakers and relays. Tetra Tech has been selected as the successful bidder. We have negotiated a contract amount of $650,630. The contract estimate level of confidence is optimal. The construction cost estimate is around $4 million, and the level of confidence for that is low because the project has not been designed yet. The project schedule consists of 4 major phases: pre-design, design, advertising, and construction. Near the end of the design phase, there will also be a pre-purchase phase for the procurement of equipment with long lead times prior to the start of construction. Pre-design and design will be complete by July 2019, and we plan to advertise for construction in October 2019. Following completion of the design portion of this project, we will return to council to request approval to advertise and award construction contracts. Construction is planned to be complete by August 2020. There were 4 engineering firms who submitted proposals for the project. These firms were evaluated by a qualifications-based selection process, which ranks architectural and engineering firms on the basis of technical qualifications. The highest-ranking firm is selected as a successful proposer, and once the selection process is made, the city negotiates a project scope of work, schedule, budget, and consultant fee. Tetra Tech was selected as the most qualified firm. The DMWESB participation is excellent for this project. DMWESB stands for Disabled, Minority, Woman, and Emerging Small Business. Tetra Tech did an excellent job identifying subcontractors for design portions of this project. The amount of $384,994, which is 59% of the contract, is allocated to these subcontractors. The percentage of this contract that is designated for DMWESB firms is significantly higher than the average for city contracts. And I have representatives from Tetra Tech here today if there are any questions as to how they achieved that level of participation.
I don't have a question, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to applaud that. Good job.
Thank you. Today, therefore, we request an ordinance to approve a contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated in the amount of $650,630 for engineering services. Thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, any further questions? Any further public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one else signed up.
Very good. Excellent. Well done. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Well done. All right, just a couple of cleanup items here. Second readings. Let me make sure I don't miss any of them. The next item is 679.
686, do I have?
I'm sorry. Is 686 next?
669.
I'm sorry, that's really weird. Right. I must be having vision issues. 686, yes.
686, amend contract with Enfro Tech and Consulting, Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount to $1,545,000 for the implementation, support, and maintenance of a new environmental compliance information management system.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. We've already had a first reading, testimony, and a presentation. Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted, and last is 688, second reading also.
Assess property for sidewalk repair for the Portland Bureau of Transportation.
Please call the roll.
Question?
Commissioner
Is
Fritz.
this the one that the person was going to do some extra work on? That we had the objection?
Is there anybody here representing the auditor?
There isn't, but this is the property that Mr. Bell
Yeah.
had.
And I thought the idea was that it was going to be a month and we were going to get a report on what the outcome was. Larry Sipes says I'm remembering correctly, so maybe could we defer this one, please, Matt?
That's good. Should we bring it back this afternoon and see if we can get the auditor?
Get some clarification,
engaged?
because
Yeah,
I believe that
we
was
go
done,
ahead
because my
and-
impact statement has a different amount in it. fund
Okay,
amount,
so why don't we hold this off until this afternoon at 2 p.m. Have I missed any, Carla? It looks to my eyes like we've covered
That's the
everything.
last one I have.
Very good. Colleagues, thank you. We are adjourned.